just want something more than this. I wanna see beaches, waves run upon me, galaxy of symphony. Follow the tide, is this pride really mine?
Look, you feel like a vacation to me. Say you just got time for yourself. I was selfishly hoping it's something you were saving for me. I wasn't waiting on you, but what shit, I saw chances you wouldn't be waiting for me. Heaven and hell only knows where I'd be if my granny and papa wasn't praying for me. But now I'm here, I see my past crystal clear. I should see my future because it's near, but I don't. At least not like I want. A new sensitivity comes when I'm wrong. Suppose that subliminally means that I'm grown. Used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm gone. But not no more. I used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm grown. And talk about the destructive cycles in my songs.
Is to feel the breeze. I wanna see beaches.
Climate change is happening are projected to rise by 1.4 by the year 2050. Underground widespread pressure excavating out of this one on the west with one the tide level not to dire warning about climate change and dying for a reason.
the candle, don't know why it feels like can't nobody come around. Just me and you for a while. They said the sun is shining, but you can't go nowhere. And you start to see that life ain't fair. You know you gotta pull yourself together, try a little longer to show that you care. I'll see you on the other side when it's over. If it's over, I'll see you on the other side when it's over. was wrong, we could have been so much more things. No doubt in my mind that we were meant to be together.
Are we live? Oh, we're live. Okay. Oh my gosh. Hi everyone, how are we doing? Some nerves in the house. Welcome. My name is Sarah Goforth. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the University of Arkansas. I know most of you. Welcome to the final round of the 2023 Heartland Challenge. Let's give it up for all 12 teams that competed yesterday in the semifinal round. I would say this was perhaps the most heated deliberation season I have ever experienced. Some of the judges were debating for quite some time the quality and the caliber of your presentations, the knowledge of your businesses, the passion for the problems you're solving were all so real. So thank you for bringing it. Thank you for being here. Judges, I'm so excited to see a lot of semifinal and first round. Raise your hand if you are a first round or semifinal judge. Some really impressive folks in our community. Thank you so much for being here. This is it. This is the final round. I'm here to lay the groundwork for what to expect for the next few hours, and then I will kick off the introductions of our final round judges. First thing, and I wrote this down because I can't forget to say it, please silence your phones. Sarah, please silence your phone when you get down to your chair. Note that there are restrooms in this room, in that hallway there if you need it. We do ask, though, when a team is up here presenting, if you don't mind, if at all possible, try to stay seated. There will be 5 minutes in between each presentation. You can get up, exit the room, come back in, do what you need to do, but try not to enter and exit or move around too much when the teams are presenting. This is the first time we've had the final round with a live audience. I'm very excited about it. Also happy to say this is streaming live online at heartlandchallenge.uark.edu. So welcome to our online guests, and if you have someone that you think might be wanting to stream in, please text them. Let them know that this is happening. The format of today's competition is that each team will present uninterrupted for 15 minutes, their full investment pitch, followed by 20 intense and challenging, no pressure, minutes of questions from our expert panel of judges. And there's just a quick 5-minute break in between. The teams are allowed to watch each other because it's live stream, and they're also welcome in the room, so they're here. And I think that's all that I have. I will kick off the introduction of our judges with our lead judge, M.K. Marsden. M.K., thank you so much for being here, and thank you for agreeing to serve in this role every year. It's an essential one. We're never doing it without you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And welcome to everybody live and on stream. I am M.K. Marsden. I feel just privileged to be here this year and in prior years. And I have to say, the job gets harder every year. I started doing this about 30 years ago. The business plans were interesting, but the quality that you are producing now is exceptional. And your knowledge, impressive. Now get ready, because we are serious investors and entrepreneurs ourselves. I have 30 plus years, I won't tell you the truth, as a computer scientist and a data scientist. I'm an angel investor. I sponsor women in sports and STEM. And I get the privilege of being the senior judge, which means I wrangle these guys to coming to a conclusion for ideally finding the best plan. And it's a really hard job because you're all exceptional, so please know that. So now I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to start from the left with Cleet, please. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello. It's the awkward turn here, isn't it?
It is tough, yeah.
Cleet Brewer. I'm local, born here in Fayetteville, and run a company called New Road Capital Partners with some other entrepreneurs that started it. It's an operator-led fund. We have about $650 million of assets under management. We invest primarily in supply chain, logistics, transportation, retail, and consumer tech. And that's my background. Entrepreneurial background prior to starting New Road, building a couple of companies to scale.
You're also one of the premier sponsors this year.
We are.
Thanks for that.
Sorry.
It's hard.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I am Jahan Ali at Symbiosis Capital. A quick word on Symbiosis. We are an independent investment fund based here in Bentonville. We spun out of a large U.S. family office a little over a year ago. We invest exclusively in biotherapeutics, and we invest in companies which, with our money, will enter human clinical trials. My background is as a scientist. I have a PhD in cell and molecular biology from NYU School of Medicine, did a postdoc at Rockefeller, and then decided to move to the business side. And I've been on the business side for the past 24 plus years. Started in tech licensing, moved to a role at a biotech company, and then worked at an investment fund all in New York City. Moved to Bentonville about 9 months ago.
Yay. We are loving having you here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bobby Sandage. I did my undergrad work here at the University of Arkansas and finished at Medical Center in Little Rock in pharmacy, and then got a PhD in clinical pharmacy and pharmacology. Went straight into the pharmaceutical industry and did new drug development for 40 years now. Is it, or maybe a little bit longer, more than MK. I'm currently a general partner in a small fund in St. Louis. I'm a managing director of another fund called Light Chain Capital, and I'm also the managing director of a foundation where we focus on investing in biotech startups, mostly in the cancer area, although we do stray a little bit from that. And I'm very excited to be here and hear all these pitches because there's a lot of bioscience stuff going on.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. Really excited to be here. Anoop Prasanna. I'm probably the odd one out a little bit. I work for Walmart, and my passion and all of that, my entire career has been in tech. I have the great privilege of working with some really smart people, working on some disruptive technologies, and what we do is work across broad problems across the enterprise, trying to solve and leverage AI, conversational, mobile solutions, as well as a lot of data-related data science work. So the probably one thing that I share with a lot of you in the room is I was in your shoes many years ago, so was part of the program really early on, working with Dr. Carol Reeves and Deb, and then have been since working with Sarah as well. And it's been a great privilege to share the stage here with this incredible group of people, and also to kind of mentor and help all of you from the lessons we learned the hard way over the years. So really excited to hear from you all today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Bosch. I am here from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was a judge last year, and it was a really hard decision, and so I'm really interested to see what happens this year in terms of the finalists. My background is I grew up in California, went to the University of Southern California for undergrad and business school, started working at a coffee shop in high school and ended up operating 22 coffee shops 7 years later, and then had a product manufacturing business for most of my 20s, which we built and sold to a publicly traded uniform company. I invested in and then ran a mobile user acquisition business for a couple of years, so kind of like Cleet, I'm an entrepreneur. I began doing real estate investing in 2005, angel investing in 2010, and for the last 5.5 years I've been doing it institutionally out in Tulsa. I lead Atento Capital. We're an early stage VC, investing in pre-seed and seed, which we lead, and then we're investing in seed stage funds, kind of opportunistically, and then Series A and Series B as well opportunistically. And very excited to be here. I'm excited to see everyone's presentation, so thank you for having me.
All right. That's great. Give it up to the judges. Okay, I hope you're ready. First up is Mira Heart from Johns Hopkins University. Let's welcome them to the stage. Thank you. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Hi. Nice to meet you. Sorry for reaching across. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Nice meeting you. Is this sticking together? There we go. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Desari. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Mira Heart, saving children's childhoods from progressive congestive heart failure. I am part of a founding team with great clinical and technical expertise in pediatric device innovation. I'm joined today with Carter Golke, my CTO, and we are a group of biomedical engineers from Johns Hopkins University with a diverse set of skill sets in cardiac technologies, at-home monitoring, as well as solutions across the medical device space. After spending 6 months immersed in the Hopkins Hospital, we have partnered up with Dr. Danielle Gottlieb-Senn, one of the nation's top pediatric cardiothoracic surgeons, who herself have ran multi-million-dollar clinical trials in pediatric monitoring. We have an advisory board who is set to help us with clinical implementation. Dr. Vanderbilt is from Boston Children's Hospital. Dr. Mao is from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and a heart transplant director there. And Dr. Anita Krishnan is a pediatric cardiologist from Children's National. With over 120 years of collective medical device industry experience, our strategy advisors are here to push Mira Heart forward. Dr. Eskandanian is the Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer at Children's National, and our Hopkins mentors have been here from early stage innovation now to evidence generation research. I'd like to introduce to you the most important person in our story, Taylor. Taylor is an 8-month-old baby girl who's just been diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, a heart muscle abnormality. She was relatively healthy when she was diagnosed, so her cardiologist let her go home to her family. However, she warned her parents that Taylor is at great risk of developing congestive heart failure, which is an end-stage disease that is a lifelong battle. She told them to look out for qualitative symptoms, such as Taylor being more fussy and fatigued than normal. And despite giving her around-the-clock care and making sure her needs were met, Taylor was not okay. She was fussy one day, and her parents informed the cardiologist in a matter of days. But at this point, it was too late. Taylor is in heart failure. Here, Taylor is critically hospitalized. As you can see, she's barely recognizable. She's fighting for her life in the Hopkins intensive care unit. Her body is being titrated with new medications every day, and now is not even able to be held by her loved ones. Taylor's story is a story we saw many times in the ICU and decided to push this need forward. There are more than 35,000 children in the United States who are diagnosed with congestive heart failure each year, and 50% of them are hospitalized. With an average cost of $70,000 per hospitalization, there's more than a $1 billion cost to the healthcare system. But more importantly, a larger emotional burden for the parents and children. Objective monitoring has proven to reduce rates of hospitalization. Successful devices in the adult space have proven a 58% reduction in hospitalization rates, as well as earlier diagnoses. So how come there are no pediatric devices to help children with the same problem? So we have created MiraHeart, a family-centered solution that can non-invasively monitor key metrics of pediatric congestive heart failure, called central venous pressure. Central venous pressure, or CVP, drives clinical decision-making. It allows clinicians to make decisions on medication titrations as well as surgical planning. We have 2 main components in our system: a reusable sensor that's a wearable, as well as adhesive patches, and a data analytics platform for caretakers to interface with. In the greater MiraHeart platform, patient CVP values are read at home and transmitted directly to the software system for clinicians to use, already integrated into their workflow. And in pediatrics, it's all about trends. We're able to provide long trends of CVP values for these clinicians to use to make informed decisions. MiraHeart is also very easy to use. Parents only need to use it twice a day for 5-minute measurements for a recommended period of 3 years. Caretakers and clinicians need objective CVP monitoring. We have conducted more than 80 interviews with clinicians and parents across the country, as well as 500 hours of clinical immersion in the pediatric intensive care unit, as well as clinics. And we saw firsthand the need for a system like MiraHeart and actionable metrics like central venous pressure. An intensivist from Stanford, Dr. Ullman, said if we could come up with an accurate way to non-invasively monitor central venous pressure, we would have a substantial contribution for pediatric heart failure care. The current paradigm of heart failure is inherently flawed. Patients will get diagnosed with a heart abnormality either at birth or when they present symptoms, and they're either hospitalized or sent home based on that acuity. And both of these pathways pose threats to the patient. In the hospital system, they use a very invasive catheter that goes from the neck all the way to the right atrium of their heart, where they monitor central venous pressure. But this exposes the patient to risks such as infection as well as stroke. When they're discharged, as you saw with Taylor's story, there is absolutely no monitoring, leading to high rates of hospitalizations. MiraHeart aims to transform both sides of this care pathway. We will replace the catheter in the hospital setting and mitigate those risks. And at home, we will be the first transformational product to keep these children with their families. And there's high savings to payer along both sides of these care pathways. If we were to reduce infection risk from central lines, we would have $5,000 saved per patient annually. At home, if we reduce the rate of hospitalizations as well as the length of stay, we would save around $26,000 per patient annually. We also have no direct competitors in the pediatric space, and even adult solutions are inadequate because they're either not at home or they don't monitor central venous pressure. Therefore, MiraHeart is truly the first non-invasive at-home solution to accurately get measurements of central venous pressure for clinicians. Our competitive edge over existing adult solutions is we measure right-sided heart failure, which is more common in children with abnormalities. But current devices in the adult space monitor left-sided heart failure experienced by adults. Initial bench testing has shown two key success factors. One, our prototype can accurately monitor our hemodynamic parameter that we're correlating to central venous pressure. As you can see in the graph on the right, our measurements fall within the physiological range of this value. And two, once we accurately located our clinical insight of the jugular vein, our prototype's measurements increased by 38% in precision. This shows that our technical insight and clinical insight is strong. The next steps in technical development are focused in hardware, software, as well as using real patient data. For hardware, we're using sensor calibration and focusing on form factor and adhesive progress. For software, we're looking into mobile app and EMR integration. We're beginning a clinical study in the next month in the Hopkins intensive care unit that recently got approved. We're placing our device on the kids that we're serving for. We're also recruiting clinicians from our 4 key partner institutions to perform a study and seeing their changes in decision-making with and without MiraHeart.
MiraHeart has a streamlined business model. We sell directly to the children's hospitals across the country. Then they either use our device in the hospital or their physicians prescribe it to the caretakers and families to use in the outpatient setting. When doing interviews with families, we heard about the high burden and stress that comes with having a child with heart failure. And even more stress is added from the enormous out-of-pocket costs that are incurred because of that. Therefore, our pricing model, it was structured with reimbursement in mind, where all of our prices do not exceed how much can be reimbursed. Our model has 3 different parts. The one-time cost, that's $1,000 per device. There's a recurring cost for the 60 monthly adhesive patches at $150. And the hospital subscription, that's a $500 base cost, and an additional $5 per patient that's paid monthly. All of these costs seen at the hospital will be offset by already existing remote patient monitoring CPT codes. If we look at the recommended use of our device of 3 years, all small, medium, and large hospitals will see profit using our device. For example, looking on the right at large hospitals who have around 500 children, they will see $2.6 million of profit while using our device. MiraHeart has a strong foothold with an expanding opportunity where our total addressable market is pediatric patients that are at risk of congestive heart failure in the 250 children's hospitals across the country. Our serviceable addressable market where we are starting are children with cardiomyopathy that are cared for at the dedicated 43 cardiomyopathy care centers in the US. This is 30,000 children in an $84 million market. We are starting here because these patients are one of the most at risk for developing heart failure. In fact, 60% of them experience congestive heart failure within their first month of diagnosis. And of those who get hospitalized, 1 in 10 die. These numbers are shocking, yet no one has made this population their focus. We are changing that. Initial market adoption will come from these cardiomyopathy care centers. These were created by the Cardiomyopathy Foundation to be the premier centers of care for these children, where other hospitals also refer their patients to these centers. We have done interviews with 20% of these care centers and created key partnerships in 10% of them. This will drive market adoption. Not only this, but these centers and their physicians have a high network effect because they're all so well connected that will help with market expansion without the need for an expansive sales force. There are 2 key steps towards market entry: securing protection for our intellectual property and being granted FDA regulatory clearance. We've conducted initial freedom to operate analysis, which resulted in sufficient space for us to innovate in. We'll file provisional patents in May of this year. We've consulted Hogan Lovells, which is one of the top regulatory law firms in the country on our regulatory strategy, where we'll have a tiered approach to regulatory clearance. First, we'll start with indications for use in the pediatric population in the in-hospital setting, and this will be granted by 2026. We'll then expand these indications for use to the pediatric population in the at-home setting, where we will be able to treat both inpatient and outpatient settings. We project $39 million of revenue by 2031, where we will initially enter the market in 2027 in those 4 cardiomyopathy care centers that we have partnerships with today. This will just be in the in-hospital setting, and then in 2029, once we have that extra indication for use, we'll expand to the at-home setting. This will grow our market adoption steadily, and then in 2031, it'll see a sharp rise. This inflection point is due to a study we will run to prove a reduction in hospitalizations while using our device. CVP monitoring is also translatable to other disease states as well, with pediatric heart failure being just the tip of the iceberg. Our technology and system is useful for pediatric sepsis, acute kidney injuries, as well as adult heart failure. We are starting with pediatric heart failure because we're passionate about this population, and they have seen neglect from the industry thus far without having technology to monitor their condition. MiraHeart also aligns with current market trends for all stakeholders involved. Patients, providers, and payers can work together to have better patient care and more cost-effective care. Remote patient monitoring is currently trending to reduce the reactionary care that happens in the hospital towards preventative care in the at-home setting. Also, in pediatrics, non-invasive devices are the devices we're moving towards to reduce the burden of care that these children already see. Today, we are asking for $1 million in exchange for a convertible note discounted at 25%, which will be capped at $5 million. This will be used for technical development, which is the commercialization of our device, as well as benchtop testing, for developmental studies, which are clinical and animal studies for the development of our device, as well as securing protection for the intellectual property that I mentioned earlier. This money will get us to 2025 in regulatory clinical studies, where then we'll do pivotal clinical study, get regulatory clearance, as well as start human factors and usability studies for our next at-home indication. We will initially enter the market in 2027 in the in-hospital setting and then expand at home. Total cost to market will be $6.4 million. There is a strong precedence for acquisition in this space, with companies recently like CardioMEMS, CAS Medical Systems, and Preventative Solutions, which all have monitoring devices in their portfolio, and some even have pediatric products in their product lines. We see ourselves aligning with the precedence for acquisition, the missions, and the product lines of Edwards Lifesciences and Boston Scientific, who would acquire us to bolster their monitoring portfolio, as well as expand into the pediatric population further. Another option is IPO. iRhythm Technologies is an example of this recently, who also has a remote patient monitoring cardiac device that currently has a market cap of $4 billion. We envision MiraHeart to transform care for children with heart failure and prevent deadly hospitalizations. We are a non-invasive device, have fully reimbursed costs, and will see quick market expansion to help the most children possible. We recently spoke to a young mother whose child has a heart disease, and she told us that they were lucky to have only gone to the emergency room 4 times this year. That is not acceptable. With your support, MiraHeart will give these children and their families the care that they deserve from the comfort of their own home. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great presentation, by the way. So I want to ask you one question that to me seemed a contradiction. You mentioned that that this was actually going to earn revenue for the hospitals, and at the same time, you're trying to save hospital costs for the parents. Can you just elaborate on that?
Sure. So when we say we're going to earn revenue for the hospitals, this is because of reimbursement codes. We're using remote patient monitoring reimbursement codes for the reoccurring costs of our system. This would be the adhesives as well as the software. So MiraHeart will cost a hospital $2,100 per patient annually, and the reimbursement codes will cover $2,700 per patient. So after a span of 3 years of recommended monitoring, they're able to have a profit after their reimbursement of around like $2.6 million for a large hospital.
Is that higher than the 4 ER visits and the baby that you showed with all the sensors?
So while that profit is not higher than the cost burden that goes into these hospitalizations, which is the ER visits, MiraHeart itself inherently will prevent these hospitalizations from happening in the first place.
I'd like to go look at the TAM and the go-to-market strategy because we've got different numbers in the executive summary, the business plan, and then the presentation on TAM. So I'd also like to understand the logic behind pediatric first or the smallest TAM versus some of the other TAMs that you've identified. So whichever way you want to answer the question, that's up to you.
Yeah, so we are starting in pediatrics because central venous pressure is more important for that population because they have right-sided heart failure. And in adults, they have left-sided heart failure, which central venous pressure is not as indicative in that population. And so that's why we're starting there.
Can I just
absolutely.
dig in here with you?
Yeah.
So the product only works for the children, and it would be a different product for the adults because of the different sides of the heart? Am I hearing this right?
It works, so our product works for right-sided heart failure.
Yeah.
And adults have left-sided heart failure. However, left-sided heart failure always results in right-sided heart failure. And so while our device works for pediatrics, it will also work for adults.
Okay.
However, the adults' devices don't work in that same manner.
Okay. And then what about the kidney area and the other ones that had huge TAMs?
Right.
I'm a little worried about the TAM. I'll just be clear about why I'm digging into these questions, right? I'm a little worried about the small market. So help me understand, is it a strategic advantage? Is it why this to get to your growth strategy?
So the reason why we chose pediatric congestive heart failure as our target is because when we did these clinical rotations, it became very clear that these patients, who are majority are at home usually because the hospitals can't have them admitted into the hospital, they are suffering because they don't have any monitoring. And the key metric clinicians need for congestive heart failure is central venous pressure because it dictates diuretic management. And so when we're able to provide this key metric for congestive heart failure, we know that it'll have a decrease in hospitalization rates. So this population is the most deserving right now for central venous pressure. But in terms of acute kidney injury as well as pediatric sepsis, both of those disease states involve increases in central venous pressure, but not to the same decision-making that we're targeting with congestive heart failure, which is diuretic management as well as medication management. But acute kidney injury is a long-term end-stage result of congestive heart failure, so to prevent that in the first place, that is the first goal. And pediatric sepsis is a completely different disease state that we know we have an expansibility to, because they also use central venous pressure to dictate treatment for that.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mike. Go first. So I have a couple of questions. One is, does it have a warning system for an acute decompensation of a child?
That's a really great question. So when we first implement this on a patient, we'll get their baseline CVP values. So initially for parents, it'll empower them by giving them trends of CVP, but it'll mainly warn the physicians in the hospital system who are looking at these changing trends that there is an increase in central venous pressure. But we are mainly an information providing device. So we're not going to be diagnosing any congestive heart failure trends or anything like that, but mainly giving them any drastic changes in central venous pressure alerts and stuff like that, but not a decision-making device.
And what about the measurement? And did you test it in different skin thicknesses, different different situations like that in the lab?
Yeah, so we have tested it on adult participants, and our next clinical study that we're performing within May, actually, it just got approved, is we'll be using our hardware on pediatric patients, babies in the Hopkins ICU. So that's the next step in our development.
And what's your predicate that you decide it's a class 2 as opposed to having to do a de novo or a PMA?
Yeah, so our predicate is, let me just show it. Oh, there we go. How to go back?
The bottom button.
Oh, there we go. So our predicate is the Mespria Life Sciences Venus 2000 monitor. It currently monitors central venous pressure non-invasively in the adult population in the hospital setting. So that is the reason why we wanted to take a staged approach so we can avoid the de novo class pathway. So we'll get from the adult to pediatric, both staying in hospital, then going from in hospital to at home with extra usability testing and human factors.
Can you do, since you use an algorithm to come up with this from your measurements, can you do things like SVR, systemic vascular resistance, because those are just additional mathematical numbers that might help the clinician?
That's a really good point. We are looking into adding extra numbers to our platform. Right now in clinical care, they use weight, cardiac output, respiratory rate as all metrics for congestive heart failure. So we envision Mira Heart turning into a platform technology where central venous pressure is a first portfolio product. We'll be adding the metrics that they already use to diagnose heart failure.
And the placement on the neck, is it how precise does it have to be to get a good reading so that your standard errors or standard deviations are within what you need it to be?
Yeah, they actually do have to be pretty precise. And in lab testing we've done, we did a test against just using anatomical landmarks to place our device and then using the gold standard of ultrasound. And that was what we showed with that increase in precision. And so that is the part of our development of our device, is descaling this so that parents can place it on their children. And so that is a part of our development.
Yeah, one more question, and I'll turn it over to somebody else. So you want to raise $1 million at a 25% discount with a $5 million cap, but I didn't see a coupon or an interest rate on there. Normally I would see somebody give me 8% or something like that. No.
No, sorry. I can.
That's as good as I've seen at the poker table.
I can reply to that. If that helps. So, in recent years, there's been this thing called a SAFE, which doesn't have interest, where a convertible note does. Though the climate has moved back to more investor friendly, so I think you could probably expect some interest if you were putting together a term sheet.
I would expect some interest.
I'll ask a couple quick questions if that's okay. I wanted to make sure I understood the response to MK's question, because I also had the same question. I can't help myself but look for a B on the total addressable market or the go-to-market. So if I understood you correctly, the device as it stands today with no modifications, even though it focuses on the right side of the heart and the adult issues on the left side of the heart, and I'm oversimplifying because this is beyond my level of expertise in the space, if the device works for adults today, even just because if there's an issue on the left side of the heart, there'll also be the traceable issue on the right side of the heart, could you today go to market with adults and have the same and it be able to work and just have a much bigger market?
Yeah, it's possible that we could go to adults today. The one problem is there is a competitor that's already in that space that does remote monitoring for heart failure in adults, that does monitor the left-sided heart failure. And so that wouldn't be a hurdle to going to adults first, which is why we want to start with pediatrics.
And what makes you confident later on then that you can go after the adults if there's that same competitor?
Because that competitor is an invasive device, and so you need a surgery that goes along with placing that device. And so that's our competitive edge against them, which is why we think later on, once we've proven the reduction in hospitalizations, that'd be an okay strategy.
Got it.
Keep going.
Okay. On the same line of questioning? Yeah. Well, so wouldn't that seem, I mean, I understand you want to kind of prove the reduction, but I think that'll come from your clinical trials regardless. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you think then you could today have a non-invasive competitive offering for existing much bigger market and still take market share in the same way you could in the future and just have a much bigger go-to-market out of the gate?
Yeah, I think to kind of pivot back to the reason why we chose pediatrics, we see that we have a really clear path to market in terms of the adoption rate, as well as just the absolute need that is necessary, because there's no monitoring technology at all. So we see ourselves becoming the leaders in this space in pediatric cardiac care. And this is the same thing that happens with a lot of adult solutions. They see pediatrics, they see that it is a small market, or they see that there is not much of an appeal, and they pivot directly to some sort of adult-facing solution. And that is our strongest advantage. I think we see ourselves being a portfolio pediatric product, and we see ourselves also serving the adult population, while they still have other solutions right now to serve them. So this is the clearest path for our success, as well as the mission that we have.
Got it. Understood. So let's circle up on the 84 million. Then can we go to the chart that has the revenue chart by year going through 2031? So when we model basically how much of a market share a company can have, we assume they can get 5%, best case 10% of an available market. So if it's 84 million, we would assume an $8.4 million of revenue would be available on the high side. Really, $4 million would be available for you in your market, just in terms of like how market share that you can capture easily. So where in this projection, or what are the key assumptions in this projection? Like when does it go to adults, or what are the assumptions behind the revenue model that you have here? By year.
Sure. So I can start if you want to take it on. But so 2023 to 2026, we're still in development. So around 2026 is when we'll get FDA clearance to enter in hospital. So the first year of 2027 is in hospital revenue, entering 4 key partners that we have. And also, just to preface, this chart is just to looking at our cardiomyopathy patients, 30,000. We haven't fully expanded into the pediatric patients with other congenital heart disease or patients with other heart abnormalities. So because we're focusing on such a strong network of 43 care centers, we know that we'll have a high adoption rate once we expand using our key opinion leaders as well to get adoption.
So this is just getting to 20 of those 43
Yes.
hospitals by 2031.
Which would be, if it's just child, would be 100% market share, correct? Because there's 84 million in market share, and this is 39 of it, which I guess is like 20, 40-thirds. Mm-hmm. So 100% market share is the assumption?
It's not the assumption. We do know that that's not going to be reasonable, but we have clinicians on our board who are part of the Action Network, which is the pediatric congestive heart failure care. That's where they create a lot of these guidelines. And we know that we have key partners as well as strategies to get implementation into a lot of these hospital adoption rates.
I had a simple question, not on this, but and I think you kind of answered the questions. But what's preventing one of the invasive device companies to just tweak the tech, the sensors, so that they can start, getting into this market space?
You want to take it?
Yeah, so the invasive devices in pediatrics is something that everyone is trying to go away from. And so they would have to change their device from being invasive to then being non-invasive, because that's the whole issue with the central line currently being used in the hospital.
Yeah, but there are non-invasive companies as well that are doing this for adults.
Right.
So why couldn't they just extend their tech to do it for pediatrics?
So our biggest power is that we're an at-home solution. This current solution is focusing just in clinic, and they don't really have like a software platform as well as a structure there to transmit this data from here, from like the clinic setting or from the at-home setting to the clinic setting. So while that is our technical advantage, our clinical insight is something that's translatable because this device that's our competitor requires a tilt table, and it is not like an ambulatory device, while ours is something that the babies can use when they're sitting up, laying down, rolling around, stuff like that. So that's another key advantage that I don't think that they will be able to get in the next few years while we're working on this.
So your assumptions on this timeline are getting the FDA to approve you for at-home use and self-monitoring?
Correct.
Wow, that's not easy to do. Can you go to the 1 million leading to the Series A? I think it was like 26 somewhere.
Can I just piggyback your question?
Yeah.
The at-home doesn't come in till what year?
2029.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cleve.
Okay. So your seed is going to, just so I'm clear, by the way, first of all, congratulations for getting here. It's a big deal.
Thank you.
I mean, I've heard it was one of the most competitive ever in these early rounds. So congratulations. So your seed gets you what? How many on your team really focused on this and trying to start getting those 20 hospitals lined up and ready to go and dealing with that? What does that look like? Is it a couple of you quitting your jobs and doing this till we raise the Series A? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Sure. So our team right now is 4 full-time engineers working on this project. And we envision ourselves working just as hard for the next however long it takes to get here. But there's 4 of us who are engineer backgrounds and are driving technical development, driving a lot of this implementation strategy, creating this business model. And then Dr. Gottlieb Sen is one of the 2 pediatric cardiac thoracic surgeons at Hopkins. And she herself has an innovation lab that has connections to a lot of different hospital centers in the United States. And she's one of our key opinion leaders. And then the board members, we expect to keep them on for a very long period of time. The clinicians from the 4 key partnerships, as well as our mentors from Hopkins. So we're all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, and this money will also go into trying to start expanding the sales force to get ready for market entry. And then the engineering that we also need, we'll have to hire like a software engineer to work on the other side of the device, and so that will also be a part of this seed round.
You talking about the other side of the heart for the?
No, I was talking like the software side of like the app and the clinician side.
So just so I'm understanding this, the model you built is just built on getting the majority of the hospitals to adopt your technology versus the invasive technology.
Right.
Is there patents around your algorithms, that component of the pediatric side, that will also be a deterrent for these others that they mentioned to just jump over there and try to do something with the other side of the heart?
Yeah, we're working on filing those right now, where we plan to do that in May of this year.
Towards the algorithm as well as the hardware components of the system.
So algorithm and hardware.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 2 disparate questions. The first one is I'm trying to understand the patient journey. You're starting in the hospital, so are those patients who already had an episode and they're admitted?
So patients with heart abnormalities are usually found prenatally, or most of the time they're either found prenatally or at birth. And there are some with, for example, cardiomyopathy that develop it later in their adolescence as they're developing. So usually they get diagnosed with their heart condition right as they're born. And their parents are prepped at that point by their cardiologist what they're expected to do. They're already really nervous about it, but that is the majority of the patients that we're looking at. But especially with cardiomyopathy, 0 to 3 is the highest range of prevalence, and then 12 to 15 years of age is the highest range of prevalence. And these are the kids that got missed when they were initially born. So our device can actually be translatable across 0 to 21. There's no change for like form factor.
But initially, you're only targeting kids who are in the hospital until you go to the at-home test, correct?
Right, so we're targeting patients who are admitted and using central lines in the hospital setting, but also there's a subset of patients who are too risky, who are too unhealthy to get a central line. So they're just missing this key value of central venous pressure for medication management. So MiraHeart can apply to those patients as well.
Okay. Now, when you go to the at-home testing, the parent gets a signal that the pressure is too low. What happens after that?
Yes, so right now the parents will be using it twice a day for 5 minutes, and this data will be in this data analytics platform. Because we want to, after doing patient interviews, we just saw how much stress these parents are in with data, and while we do want to empower them with this newfound data, we also do want to be careful with stressing them out or giving them any indications. So we'll send this data directly to physicians, and the physicians will be able to contact their parents and bring them in for changes in medication, if they need an extra checkup. But just these titrations and these early preventative measures is a key way to prevent decompensation from happening.
Got it. Okay, thank you. That was really helpful. Okay, now on the IP side, can you talk about what intellectual property you filed for and at what stages and what does it cover?
Thank you. So we haven't filed officially, but we're currently working with lawyers right now to file for 2 provisional patents in May. We're filing for the core algorithm as well as our hardware.
Core algorithm and is the algorithm, so it's the actual device that you showed? That's $1,000. So that's a design patent? And the algorithm is, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did the algorithm do actually?
It's able to create the correlation from our key hemodynamic parameter to central venous pressure. which we'll be doing accuracy testing for in the clinical studies.
You have no method of use patents?
We're not at the moment.
Are you using just commercial sensors?
Currently, we're using, yes, commercial sensors, but a large part of the $1 million investment will go towards acquiring higher fidelity sensors that we know we'll be using for the pediatric population.
That's it, guys.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Well done. Well done. Way to set the bar. We are running just a few minutes ahead of schedule, but we're going to stay on our schedule. So 2:10 is when the next team goes. So enjoy a break. Come back at 2:10.
One day when the sun is gone, who's gonna know what's at all? Who's gonna know what's at all? When the sun is gone, who's gonna know what's at all? Who's gonna know what's at Tonight we're gonna stay inside. Light a candle, don't know why it feels like can't nobody come around. Just me and you for a while. I said the sun is shining, but you can't go nowhere. And you start to see that life ain't fair. You know you gotta pull yourself together, try a little longer to show that you care. I'll see you on the other side when it's over. If it's over. There's no doubt in my mind that we were meant to be together. I know it took a while to make it through that iffy weather. I wish you were mine. 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 It was the right love at the right time, but we were with the wrong people. Only the stars aligned a little bit earlier. And now that you're mine, I wouldn't have it any other way. I just wanna say, I just wanna say what you
Sorry, it goes fast. They were so good. Were they so good? I know them all too well. It's 45. Didn't coach them. Okay. The time goes fast. There's a lot of people to talk to here. We're all friends. But I invite you to take your seat. Let me make sure I remember who's next. All right, I invite you to help me welcome Cathosher from Clemson University. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't play with it until. Just wait for all the judges to sit. All right, you guys ready for us? All right. Good afternoon. We are Team CatheSure, and we are so excited for this opportunity to present to you. Meet Addison, the cutest Clemson fan around and the inspiration for our project. Addison is 1 in 500 children worldwide diagnosed with hydrocephalus. This is the most common childhood brain disorder, and it also affects an additional 1 million adults. Addison joined the 1 in 500 at just 8 months old. The ventricles in her brain swelled as cerebrospinal fluid built up, putting pressure on the brain. Addison underwent surgery to relieve this pressure. Her surgeon inserted a ventriculoperitoneal shunt, which is the most common course of treatment. A shunt is a catheter system that drains fluid from the ventricles in the brain all the way down to the peritoneal cavity in the abdomen. Unfortunately, 70% of shunts fail, 40% within the first year alone. The symptoms of a shunt malfunction are extremely vague, often mimicking the common cold or the flu. However, every symptom must be taken seriously because untreated failures can lead to seizures, brain damage, and even death. Addison's symptoms surfaced right at the start of flu season in the form of a fever, vomiting, and endless crying. Her parents took her to the hospital for a CT scan, which came back inconclusive. Unfortunately, this happens 58% of the time, leaving families like Addison's with a decision. Do they risk missing a potentially fatal shunt malfunction, or do they put their 1-year-old through an exploratory brain surgery on just a suspected diagnosis? They choose the surgery, and $100,000 later, they find out the shunt wasn't even the problem. Unfortunately, this cycle is all too common for patients with hydrocephalus. They expose themselves to repeated radiation from CTs, undergo countless surgeries, and they risk infection and surgical complications because they don't have any other options. There is a critical need for a device that can quickly and definitively determine whether or not a patient is experiencing a shunt malfunction.
With our device, Addison would save up to $100,000 in prolonged hospital stays. Avoid any risks with exploratory open brain surgery. Avoid any additional implantation surgeries. And avoid repeated radiation exposure due to multiple CT scans. Our device decreases the diagnostic time from 5 hours to just 5 minutes. That means Addison gets a diagnosis 98% faster. Right now, Addison's parents constantly wonder if a headache is just a headache. Now they can be sure with the CatheSure. The CatheSure is a wireless pressure sensing device that is integrated into the shunt system and can confirm a malfunction in under 5 minutes. The CatheSure's implanted pressure sensing module attaches to any ventricular peritoneal shunt system, sits in line with it, and doesn't change the current surgical procedure. The external remote transfers power to that implanted module, and there are no internal batteries. When a physician holds the external remote to the skull, as if you were taking its temperature, power is transferred, pressure is measured, and that pressure value is displayed on a screen to be read by a physician. Just like blood pressure, intracranial pressure varies from person to person. That's why a baseline reading will be taken and used as a reference for each subsequent pressure reading. For example, if your baseline reading was 17 millimeters of mercury and you return to the emergency room with a reading of 31 millimeters of mercury, a physician can confidently conclude that you are experiencing a shunt malfunction. However, if you returned with a reading of 15 millimeters of mercury, we can conclude that your symptoms are not the source of a shunt malfunction.
To ensure our device was both useful and wanted by physicians, we surveyed local physicians for customer discovery. 83% said the device would be extremely easy to use, and 100% said this would be a valuable diagnostic tool. All of the physicians that we spoke to were very eager to integrate this device into their practice.
In March, Clemson University assigned us 100% of the rights to our invention, and we filed a provisional patent. This past October, we competed in and won the Collegiate Inventors Competition, where we were awarded a patent acceleration certificate, in addition to the USPTO's support throughout the patent process. Now let's talk about our business model. We're selling the CatheSure at a price of $5,000. With our COGS at $1,200, we're looking at a gross margin of 76%. We've designed our implantable portion to be compatible with any ventricular peritoneal shunt system, meaning we're not affected by hospitals in exclusive contracts with manufacturers. Thus, we have the potential to capture 100% of our market. Additionally, the external remote will be purchased by hospitals in quantities of 5 to 10. This is a nominal cost in comparison to the price of the internal and will equip hospitals with the capability to diagnose CatheSure patients for life.
So now that we've introduced you to our business model, let's take a look at the cost-benefit analysis. Right now, each time a patient experiences a shunt malfunction, they can spend up to $100,000 getting this diagnosis. Over the lifetime of their shunt, this number can rise to more than $500,000. In contrast, the CatheSure is a one-time payment of $5,000, which is 20 times cheaper than each exploratory surgery. Once we receive insurance reimbursement, this will lower the out-of-pocket cost for the CatheSure even further. The sum of the current individual costs paid create a whopping $15 billion healthcare burden. The CatheSure can decrease this exponentially, reducing costs to a mere fraction of what is currently paid.
Due to the 70% failure rate, there is a need for the CatheSure to accompany every implanted shunt. Our total addressable market in the US is all 30,000 patients who receive a shunt each year for a market potential of $150 million. The 40% of patients whose shunt fail within the first year make up our sales available market. This market is valued at $60 million. Our initial target market will focus on the 3,000 patients who are most medically fragile. They are in the greatest need of our device, and so by focusing on this patient population, we hope to penetrate the market. This market is valued at $15 million. The OUS is estimated to be 2 to 3 times what we have just presented for the US market.
So the CatheSure currently has no direct competitor products on the market, though there are 2 partial competitor products, the Camino intracranial pressure monitor and the CereLink intracranial pressure monitor. With these devices, patients must undergo a separate surgery where a surgeon drills burr holes into their skull to insert the probe. These are wired devices, meaning that patients are tethered to a hospital monitor via the probe that's sticking out of their head. They're also not shunt specific, meaning that they can only point to a problem that could be due to the shunt, or it could be due to a variety of other causes, such as swelling, infection, or aneurysm. And worst of all, these devices can only stay implanted for 4 days. So each time a patient experiences shunt malfunction symptoms, they have to undergo yet another surgery, have yet another round of holes drilled into their skull, and this diagnostic cycle continues. Now, with the CatheSure, when a patient presents with these vague symptoms, potentially a shunt malfunction, the surgeon can use the external remote to place it to their skull and receive a pressure value wirelessly and non-invasively. This value is shunt specific, so physicians know each time whether or not the shunt is the source of the problem. And finally, the Cathosher has a lifetime twice that of the shunt, meaning no additional surgeries, no battery replacement surgeries, and no extra time spent in a hospital bed.
We have successfully completed our first round of verification and validation bench testing on our functional prototype, proving our device is able of performing its critical functions. We are currently exploring contract manufacturers, including Bosch North America, who is a global provider of pressure sensing equipment, able to produce our device on the implantable scale. We are also amidst negotiations with the South Carolina Research Authority for SC launch grant in order to fund our next round of testing. Our team is curative talent balanced to execute our business and regulatory milestones. All of us are graduating with our Masters of Engineering, making us extremely familiar with the regulatory pathway. In addition, Allie and myself will be certified quality professionals and plan to stay on with this project. Richard, Chip, and Carlo each have over 35 years of commercialization experience, helping us navigate the business aspects that are new or unfamiliar. And finally, our clinical collaborator is a pediatric neurosurgeon, Dr. Chris Troop. He serves as our bridge, keeping our regulatory and business milestones informed with his clinical input.
We anticipate the Cathosher to be a Class 2 medical device following the 510(k) pathway. We will claim substantial equivalence to an already FDA-cleared device, the BranchPoint Aura, so we will only be required for bench testing and animal studies to achieve our own FDA clearance. However, we will be meeting with the FDA in a pre-submission to confirm our regulatory strategy. While a clinical trial is not required for FDA clearance, we will be performing one since it is crucial for market success and physician adoption. Physicians are understandably hesitant with any novel medical device, and thus this clinical trial data will increase their confidence and decrease any unknowns or perceived risks. This data will also allow us to expand our labeling and marketing claims and shorten our timeline to reimbursement.
So in creating the market capture strategy for our device, we recognize that each customer segment will require a different tactic. To capture the innovators, we plan to highlight the Cathosher's potential to revolutionize the diagnostic process. We will focus on this population in our search for clinicians to serve in our clinical trial. Medical conferences and trade shows for novel technology are excellent opportunities to engage with early adopters. Interacting with these potential customers and answering their questions will help us build their confidence in our product. It will also be crucial to capture key opinion leaders during this segment. The time frame within which we shift our focus to the early majority coincides with the conclusion of our clinical trial. At this point, we will have a substantial body of evidence supporting our claims, decreasing the perceived risk to tentative physicians. Now, key opinion leader influence is also spreading, allowing transmission of our product into the general population of clinicians. With both clinical trial data and market success stories, at this point, the only thing holding back these last two groups is cost. Obtaining our reimbursement will allow us to eliminate this financial burden. By the end of this, we will have executed a phased approach to our market capture strategy, capturing the majority of the market, and we expect to generate more than $50 million in annual revenue.
Now that we've gone over how we're going to capture the market, we'd like to go over our milestones to getting there. Our first line represents the testing that must be completed, starting with bench testing in year 1. Following that, we will have animal testing in year 2, and afterwards we will have clinical trials lasting through year 4. The next line represents our regulatory milestones. After completing our bench testing and animal trials, we will file our 510(k) for FDA clearance. By the end of year 4, we expect to receive reimbursement. Throughout this process, we will be working to develop and implement our quality management system. And by the end of year 4, we will have clinical trial data and reimbursement, initiating a production scale-up. We expect to need 3 tranches to fund our device to success on the market. Our total investment required will be $12.5 million, but we are currently focused on raising $200,000. This will be used to model our device on the implantable scale. Our focus for this funding tranche is to fund our money in terms of non-dilutive funding so that we retain our equity. Moving forward, we will then raise our goal for $2.3 million, and afterwards it will be $6 million, then $4 million. Above you can see our milestones we hope to accomplish with each tranche.
While there is definitely a large financial burden to getting a medical device on the market, we believe that once we receive FDA clearance at the end of year 2, we will start to see a return on this investment. In our first year of sales, with a smaller sales force, we expect to generate approximately $1.8 million in revenue. Clinical trial data will be available in year 4, increasing clinician confidence in our product and thus increasing our sales to $10 million. The exponential growth in our sales forecast in year 5 correlates with our partnership with a distributor. Partnering with a distributor will allow us to reach a much wider customer base through their existing relationships with hospital systems and significantly larger sales force. As previously mentioned, we also expect to receive insurance coverage and payment for our device in year 5. This will increase profit margins for hospital systems, in turn increasing their adoption and contributing to a revenue generation of $100 million. We expect to break even in year 4 with $3.8 million in sales, meaning that we can start to clear a profit with selling less than 1,000 devices. Our payback period is 5 years, or the 3rd year that the CatheSure is on the market, and by year 6, we expect to be extremely profitable. Taking a look at our exit strategy, we have 2 options due to the market overlap of our product. The first option is to partner with a company who has a large presence in the neurological space, such as Integra Life Sciences. The second option is to partner with a company who is a current shunt manufacturer, such as Medtronic or B. Braun. With this option, we would integrate our device into their shunt and sell it as one combined unit.
So why should you invest? The CatheSure is a novel medical device, and it's not limited to the shunt market. It has translational capabilities, meaning we can integrate into the cardiac, orthopedic markets, and even transition to an at-home device. Our prototype has been rigorously tested, confirming its technical capabilities. We also have a low-risk regulatory strategy because we do not require a clinical trial. Our initial target market is $15 million, and that will grow to over $150 million. This is only in the United States. We will be profitable in year 4. That's only 1 year after market launch. When we pursue investment, we will be asking initially $2.5 million with an overall ask of $12.5 million. We're not just hopeful we'll see success on the market. We're sure of it. Join us and be sure in the CatheSure. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the questions I had has to do with you're going to be able to start generating revenue before you have CMS or any other coverage. Who's paying for that?
Absolutely. So right now, when you think about the costs incurred by patients and their families with hydrocephalus and these shunts, they're spending up to $100,000 every single time they think they have a shunt malfunction. We've priced our device at $5,000, so we feel confident that after speaking with clinicians, patients, and parents, they would be willing to pay that $5,000 out of pocket initially. However, there are also existing reimbursement codes for the implantation and other pressure monitoring that we expect to be able to jump onto, which will provide partial coverage until we obtain that new technology code and finally that final upgrade to the CPT code.
You said that it can outlast the catheter, but each time the catheter needs to be replaced, you put a new one in, so it's another $5,000, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
It seems like if it's as good as you say it is, it's worth way more than just $5,000. How did you come up with that price?
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So we took a look at our cost of goods sold, and right now it's at about $1,200, not $12,000, $1,200. We expect to get that down about 25% when we look at large-scale manufacturing, but that's what it is at right now. And in performing market research and talking to medical device commercialization leaders, medical devices that look like ours have approximately an 80 to 90% profit margin. Ours is sitting right at 76%. So we feel like with the $5,000 number, we can recoup those initial costs involved in animal trials, clinical testing, and then just paying people to work on it. We believe that that's a fair price point that will allow us to start clearing a profit and recoup that initial investment.
Okay, this is the unfair question that I asked all companies that present to me. You didn't tell me what this is an equity round, not a convertible note, so what do you think your valuation should be at this point?
I think right now where we're at initially, our valuation is in the low $1 to $2 million. What we're looking at right now is in the next 3 months working on that implantable scale prototype and finalizing that single animal model with the non-dilutive funding with SC launch. We expect that at the conclusion of that, looking at what other startups have done and what their valuations have looked like at different stages, that our valuation post-investment would get to about $10 million. So that is the reason that we're saying initially we're focusing on as much non-dilutive funding as possible, getting that valuation up so that we can confidently ask for that $2.5 million for approximately 25% equity.
One last question. So you said that you need a baseline to know where, so how do you establish a baseline in a child that presents with hydrocephalus first time as opposed to some number that would trigger them needing to be looked after and have a catheter replaced?
Sure. So what happens is with our device, it's just snapped in like we showed you to that shunt, and the surgeon will do the same shunt implantation surgery. Those patients have to be monitored for about 72 hours post-op to make sure that everything is draining well, that they're not having any infections, complications, side effects, anything like that. So our plan is at hour 72, when they're doing that final discharge from the hospital, we will have them take that first reading. Waiting 72 hours will allow that initial influx of CSF to go all the way through the shunt, so we're not skewed by anything when they're relieving that immediate pressure. So having that at discharge will allow them to have that baseline when the shunt is flowing normally, and then that is specific to them so that when they come back, we compare to that.
Have you talked to any of the hospital buyers? Like, how does this get acquired as an add-on product to an existing expense?
Do you mean how do hospital systems purchase it, or?
Yeah, how did they purchase it? And then, how did they figure out, okay, we've got to buy shunts, so we have the budget for that. Then we have to buy your device, which is in a similar but different budget. So how are they going to be acquiring these two pieces of technology to solve the problem?
Okay, yes. Thank you for clarifying, sorry. So what happens right now is that hospitals have a purchasing committee. So we're looking at large hospital systems, understanding that the physicians are the ones who inform those purchasing committees. So they might meet once a quarter, they might meet twice a year, and we plan to get with our physicians, and the physicians make recommendations to this hospital purchasing committee. And then what they do is they take a look at their budget, at the inventory that they need, and then they compare it to those CPT codes, looking at how much they'll be reimbursed and what their profit margin looks like. So when they put all that together, if their bottom line looks positive and the physicians have indicated this is something that they really want to use, that is how they will then implement a new product into their hospital.
But you're the add-on product to another purchase.
That is
right?
correct, yes,
So
ma'am.
first we have to get the shunt purchase approval.
Correct.
Then once we've got that approved, then we can get your
Yes.
product approved, right?
Yes, ma'am. The shunts are something that they purchase in mass quantity right now. Shunts are used a lot. So that is not necessarily something that they have to be approved at this purchasing committees. Now they have a stockpile. They just buy it once a year.
I have a quick follow-up question to that. Is the whole procedure under a DRG?
Yes, we will not. Okay. We will not apply for a new DRG.
What's a DRG?
Excuse me.
It's the price to pay for the whole thing.
For the whole thing. Do you want to go ahead? Are you still in pricing?
No, I'm not in pricing.
Okay, because I'm going to keep going on money, if that's okay. So the $2.5 million for the first round. Can we go to the sales forecast slide, please?
I got this too.
Okay, so the 2.5, we want that now, and that takes us through year one.
Yes, ma'am.
We're raising what's the next raise and when? Because I'm a little bit worried about 11.7 million in the hole on a 12.5 total raise. Did you double your cost numbers? Because you're cutting it awfully close. And the last thing you want to do is run out of money or be tight on money on year 3 when you're trying to actually get into explosive growth. So I'm worried about a loss of 11.7 on a raise of 12.5. So that's what I'd like you to reassure me on, please.
You want to take it? You want me to? You got it. So in looking at that, yes, one of the things that we looked at was planning ahead in large quantities for our inventory. So including that $11.7 million, the deficit is including a large inventory for the following 2 years with that production scale up. So that is definitely something where that margin could be adjusted if we're not making inventory so far ahead of time. Because I do agree with you, we like to have some money in the bank, a little, north of $1 million would be preferable. So that is definitely something that we could look at, but we have budgeted in room for unforeseen expenses, timeline change, and things like that. So we expect that we should be good.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, hi. I know I talked to you guys this morning already. What I want to understand is about your preclinical animal models. Have you tested, which animal models have you tested this device on? For how long? Can you just talk about that?
Absolutely. Yes. So we currently have not done any animal studies. We've been working with Clemson through our master's program. Like Ali mentioned in the presentation, we just recently we won the rights to our device, and that allows us a lot more flexibility to begin that animal model and that animal testing. From a lot of the research that we've done, the pig model is an excellent model for hydrocephalus, and there have been a lot of studies done, some especially recently, that have shown they were looking at something a little bit different with the shunts, but those models have shown a lot of promise and a lot of ability to mimic the same environment and same situations that we're looking to mimic. So when we get there, we will be looking in the pig model.
Okay, my other concern was what material is your device made of? And I think I asked you this morning also, about leaching into the animal.
Yeah, so our material is silicone, so that's a widely researched biocompatible material. So there's a lot of research already on it. So the FDA is very familiar that type of material is used. That's why we picked it. We know that it doesn't elicit an immune response, but we will be performing ISO certified 10993. So that's making sure that we're following an ISO certification, so that's nationally, to make sure that there's no cytotoxicity. When it's implanted, there's nothing leaching out, that there's no immune response. We want to make sure that it is safe and effective, and we're not imposing any more risk than our predicate device. That's going to be critical for our regulatory clearance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I know you attached it to one of the company's shunts, but have you attached it to all of them? And you haven't done animal testing, so what if it falls? Like, how do you assure that it stays with the shunt?
So the configuration right now, that is something that we looked at early on. We were worried about, like, how secure is that connection if I can just pop it off on the stage to show you a demo. But that's something that our physicians assured us virtually never happens. Every physician we talked to said they have never seen the shunt come apart in the body. And so what we're planning to do is mimic those connector points. They're not patented by the shunt company, so we're planning to just mimic those connector points, adding on so that we should have the same rate of success with adhesion as they have right now.
Okay. And the last question is around your IP. Your university decided not to file the IP. Can you talk about what it covers?
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Sure. So we filed a provisional patent last month, and as anybody who's filed a patent know, we're going really broad, understanding that it'll probably get narrowed down. But our provisional patent covers essentially the placement of the transducer, which is a novel aspect, has not been found in any patents. Getting that baseline reading, we have absolute novelty on that one. That's not something that they have used in this field before. And then generally the methodology of using it to take that baseline and then to obtain a diagnosis in any potential shunt malfunctions moving forward. That is part of, we're focusing on a utility patent. I don't know if I said that for the full patent. So it will be the methodology surrounding the diagnosis.
I have a question. By the way, great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question follow-up from what Jahan was asking about how your device plays with other shunts. So as I understand it, you were saying that you could reuse it with pretty much any shunt or any catheter that exists today, and so you feel like 100% of that you should be able to plug and play with. Is that correct?
Correct.
So in other industries, it's typically when you add or introduce a device, you basically void warranties. There's risk and liability that you add. So do you really think that all manufacturers of catheters would be comfortable with you adding a device in between theirs, because you could be diluting some of the risk and liability that exists and add a lot of confusion?
So with our device, we don't increase the risk that already exists with a shunt. So shunts naturally clog, and they naturally have obstructions and malfunctions. We don't take away from any of that. All we're adding is value to the diagnostic process. So we're not changing the inherent risk of a shunt. We're just changing the inherent risk with the diagnosis of a shunt malfunction. So we're not changing that aspect. Another great feature of our device is because it's compatible with any shunt, and it doesn't change that those shunts need revisions, we're not causing friction between between us and big leaders like B. Braun and Medtronic. We're not impacting their revenue. If you need to take a shunt out, that's good for B. Braun and Medtronic. They want another shunt. That's more money for them. And we're not impeding on that. All we're doing is saying that every time you need a new shunt, now you just add our device additionally.
Yeah. Well, and I think they would definitely appreciate it. Like you said, it adds to the revenue. However, I feel like you'll have to be certified, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's just going to allow you to add your device into any other catheter. Just like you want to, if it's an engine of a car and you want to add something in there, you have to be certified for it to be added in. And I know it's not a great analogy, but
no, that's
really,
okay.
My point is, I feel like there could be added certification has to happen, and so you may not be able to capture 100% of that catheter.
I think that to go off of that, I agree with you. That's definitely something that we have to consider. We are looking to have our device classified by the FDA additionally as an accessory device, meaning that so we'll have our own FDA clearance, we'll have our own risks and warranty and things like that. But as it is an accessory device, it takes the onus off of the original shunt manufacturer to be responsible for absorbing the additional risks of our device.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, thank you for this presentation. My mind is still trying to get around that this device could go inside of me without an FDA approval somehow, which is crazy to think about. But I'm happy that you're getting one.
It can't go in you without FDA approval.
Okay, so
no.
So then
We're
FDA
waiting on
approval.
that.
No, but you're saying is not required. You're doing it on your own.
A clinical trial is not required, but we will do all the bench testing, all the animal testing. I'm not about to open anybody up anytime soon.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, happy to hear.
So you'll be right after the pig.
Before I ask you a question, I want to make sure, because I know distributor relationships really well in retail, what those margins looks like. So maybe for Bobby or Jahan, what margin would the distributor typically take in medical devices? Would either of you by chance know? Because my other questions, do you know or no? Is it 5%? Is it 50% type thing?
Oh,
It's much higher.
I cannot.
80, 90.
Well, that's the margin.
30 to 35% is market average if you're looking at like just what we would be doing with the distributors. 30 to 35%.
So they'd be so if you're selling for $5,000, you're selling to the distributor for $3,500. That's 30%.
Yeah.
So they get
Math on the stage is stressing me out.
No, sorry. Okay, so first of all, I like the slide. I think the slide is great from a cash perspective. To MK's question on like understanding like your cash needs, it's a little hard on the eyes to understand like your profit per year. But I'll say, and I'm trying to make sure I'm getting this math correct. So if your total addressable market is 30,000 patients, and there's $150 million in total revenue, and you're forecasting $103 million in revenue, which is basically your $3,500 times 30,000 patients. So year 6, you're saying 100% market penetration, because maybe my math is bad, and if it is, I'm sorry.
They could have the distributor costs in their P&L, so but it'd still be like 75%.
67%.
It's about 2/3 of the market.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
And for a medical device, is that normal to get 2/3? I mean, this is the second one, which is like these huge market penetrations. Is that normal to have that level of penetration for a medical device? Because in retail, it could never happen.
Normal, no. Possible, yes. I think that the big thing with this is that we definitely recognize that our assumptions are startling for you to look at, as I can see that you're feeling. But the one thing that we kind of want to emphasize in this is that like there aren't any other options. Like it's not so much that like surgeons are using a device that they don't love, it's that they're not even using the competitors. They're opening kids up. So the one thing that we feel like will help us have a larger adoption rate than what is industry average is that they're performing open brain surgery on infants. And so we feel like everyone that we have spoken to has said that if we have the data to prove it, they're willing to give it a shot.
And do you have referenceable benchmarks of other medical devices that have had this level of penetration in similar situations? To like a precedent, basically? Is there a precedent to say this is possible? Because I'm sure there's other medical devices that have no alternative. And what were their total market share penetration?
I can't think of specifics off the top of my head. I have all these numbers in my head running around. But there definitely are examples. I think some of them, there's a couple that were what is the word I'm looking for? Like in the cardio market, a couple of like the early devices when they were the only options for implantables. But we do recognize that this is ambitious. We've seen it. Unfortunately, I don't have a case study up here to show you, but there have been examples that have seen success in this realm.
And then my last question, maybe this is my last question. Have you two other questions? One is, have you considered debt financing for your inventory?
I'm sorry?
Have you considered debt financing, like inventory financing, in terms of like equity is very expensive?
Mm-hmm.
Have you considered like a blended equity stack with debt, like inventory financing?
I think right now we're kind of, yes, we're keeping all of our options open. We're looking into it. I think what our final response on that will depend on our valuation after the non-dilutive funding. But yes, that is something that we have looked into. We've looked at different types of funding, whatever makes the most sense for our bottom line.
And then my last question is, given this is somewhat of a limited upside, but very like a reasonable level of profitability, have you considered a capital or an equity structure that has like a guaranteed dividend of a certain percentage off the top of cash flow for your investors? Because this isn't probably a company at where it kind of levels off. That could be $1 billion company, but it could be a real cash cow. So if you're guaranteeing a dividend, it could be, from an IRR perspective, more interesting. Is that something? Have you considered that?
That's something that we briefly considered, but to be perfectly honest with you, we haven't fleshed out that far down the line quite yet because we are focusing on that non-dilutive funding. So that is an option for us. That's something that has been mentioned to us by our advisors for when we look to do that seed round of funding, but that's not something I have a concrete answer for you
So
right
to
now.
make sure I know how to think about your company, as I'm doing this rubric, we're here judging for an equity investment.
Yes.
But we were talking about non-dilutive funding.
Mhm.
So as an equity investor, I'm talking for my capital, as you're being judged for this competition, what's the answer to the question?
The answer to the question is yes. If the terms make sense, I'm all for it. Yeah. That's, I think we're
non-dilutive funding is like grants and things they're trying to do.
I understand, but I don't think we're judging on the basis of
No.
Yeah.
She said $1 million to $2 million pre-money,
Yeah.
raising 2.5. That's going to be pretty dilutive to you guys. So I think there's some further
Yeah.
conversations. But I want to hit the P&L because I only have 30 seconds because Michael's going deep.
Go ahead.
So you're spending $8 million in R&D, all in years 2 and 3, which is the majority of your burn, and then you literally drop off to 0 in R&D hardly over the next 3 years. Tell me about that, because that was kind of weird to me. And just, given that you said you don't really need, by the way, that was all in the clinical trial area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of that you don't need, but that's where you're spending $8 million. So just help me understand that, and then how does that just tail off to $500,000 a year and 3 years later?
Yes. So the first thing is that a clinical trial is going to be the majority of the expenses for most medical devices. While we recognize that it isn't required by the FDA, we're also thinking of it as an initial investment. It's kind of folds into our marketing strategy as well, right? Having that data, that $8 million investment will be an exponential return on that investment because it will convince physicians to adopt our device. And then as far as the research and development funding goes, in years 1 and 2, we will be prioritizing that implantable model, finalizing everything, and then especially the external device, we will be working on the engineering of that. But moving forward, once that has been settled and once it has been put through that clinical trial, we don't anticipate significant updates immediately after we enter the market until we receive that feedback.
So it just seems like, looking at that, you're building it to sell to. By the way, I love that you have, here's who we're going to exit to. That's awesome. But it feels like that's where you're going because the R&D just kind of dies.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'd like to take it, as far as we can, but understanding that Medtronic and B. Braun have 80% of the shunt market. So our most strategic option would most likely be a partnership, which is something that would take place after FDA clearance, and it would also be of added benefit and added value to us in that partnership if we have the clinical trial data.
By the way, congrats for being this far. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great job, ladies. And
Thank you.
I love the shirt color.
Thank you.
Gotta represent Clemson.
Thank you so much.
I think I warned you it would be intense. Did I warn you? I did. Okay, well done. We have a little bit of a longer break now to let the judges catch up on their notes. We will come back at 3 o'clock for the next team. Thank you all.
Is this brighter really mine?
Look, you feel like a vacation to me. Say you just got time for yourself. I was selfishly hoping it's something you were saving for me. I wasn't waiting on you, but what should I saw chances you wouldn't be waiting for me. Heaven and hell only knows where I'd be if my granny and papa wasn't praying for me. But now I'm here, I see my past crystal clear. I should see my future because it's near, but I don't. At least not like I want. A new sensitivity comes when I'm wrong. Suppose that subliminally means that I'm grown. Used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm gone. But not no more. I used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm grown. And talk about the destructive cycles in my songs.
Is to feel the breeze. I wanna see beaches.
Climate change is happening now. Are projected to rise by 1.4 by the year 2050. Underground widespread restoration on the west with what the tide level not to dire warning about climate change. Dying for a reason.
You said one day, isn't this what you seek? Look at where you are. Look at where you are. Standing stoic in a field of rolling green. Look at where you are. Look at where you are. When the colder winter wilts the autumn leaves, and the sand of time smother your tender gleam, will the flowers that we planted ever bloom, or will the fruit we bear rot away? One day when the sun is gone, who's gonna know what's at all? Who's gonna know what's at all? When the sun is gone, who's gonna know what's at all? Who's gonna know what's at Tonight we're gonna stay inside. Light a candle, don't know why it feels like can't nobody come around. Just me and you for a while. They said the sun is shining, but you can't go nowhere. And you start to see that life ain't fair. You know you gotta pull yourself together, try a little longer to show that you care. I'll see you on the other side when it's over. If it's over, I'll see you on the other side when it's over. If it's over, I had my face to comfort you, masking from the signs, but we know better. And can't nobody tell the truth. It's alright to be scared. Never knew that we could ever be apart. And though the longing's strong, we've got to be smart and pull ourselves together to try a little longer. Is this the way it should have happened? Could it have happened before? I was there, you were gone, you were there, I was wrong. We could have been so much more things. No doubt in my mind that we were meant to be together. I know it took a while to make it through that iffy weather. I wish you were mine. 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 It was the right love at the right time, but we were with the wrong people. Only the stars aligned a little bit earlier. And now that you're mine, I wouldn't have it any other way. I just wanna say, I just wanna say, what you I wish you were mine. 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 I wish you were mine.
Oh, no, no, I'm coming to talk to you. I didn't want you to have to go during fail. I didn't want to. No, wouldn't have been fair.
At the start of every season, I'm strung out. Always think that I'm superior till I'm stung with doubt. Maybe this will be my out and I can fly solo. Shooting from the three-point line, watch him as he goes. Watch him as he goes. Whoa. Won't spare the hornets, you never know. Watch him as he goes. Whoa. Won't spare the hornet, won't spare the hornet. Won't spare the hornet, won't spare the hornet. Stole his attention until he came around. Poisoned and unfamiliar, I don't wanna shoot him down.
All right. Welcome to the Ozarks, where it can be the perfect weather one moment and a hailstorm the next moment. And I can almost guarantee you in 5 minutes it will be sunny and 74 again. Kidding aside, we have been monitoring the radar because the last thing I want is for someone to be presenting and for it to be really loud in here and you not be able to hear. So if that comes back, we're right on the edge of the radar. It looks like the storm may have passed, but if it comes back, it gets loud, we'll just pause and then we'll pick back up again when it passes. Does that make sense to you all? Okay. All right. Well, with that, I am delighted to welcome EndoShunt, team members from Harvard and Vanderbilt University. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Zanin, and I'm the co-CEO of EndoShunt. We are a medical device company with the mission of ending preventable deaths by giving trauma surgeons the gift of time so that they can give trauma patients the gift of life. We're setting out to address a problem that's become far too common in the medical industry today. The time to death from abdominal hemorrhage or bleeding is shorter than the time it takes to actually access the site of injury, leaving our healthcare professionals in the helpless position of knowing that they could save a life while lacking the tools necessary to do so. Trauma can happen to any one of us at any time. We could be driving home from work and be met by a horrible car accident. We could be leaving the bar after drinks with friends and become yet another victim of a gunshot or stab wound. We could be entering into a routine medical procedure, but face life-altering complications for both ourselves and our loved ones. In 2022, uncontrolled bleeding was responsible for 30% more deaths than COVID-19. What's more, if we, as a group, are those lucky enough to survive these events, 3 out of every 5 of us would face nearly a year's worth of painful recovery, as well as complications as serious as amputation or organ failure based on the current trauma of secondary options on the market today. We've talked to over 500 healthcare professionals, and in every conversation with a trauma surgeon, we have heard heartbreaking stories about loved ones who could not return to their families because these professionals lack the tools they need. They're desperate for a solution, and EndoShunt is that solution. We empower trauma surgeons with the ability to gain targeted, rapid control over abdominal hemorrhage. We enter minimally invasively through the femoral artery or vein and pass to the aorta or IVC, where our device can be deployed to occlude blood from the inside. It's length adjustable so that your blood can continue to flow to where it's supposed to while preventing it from flowing out of where it shouldn't. Once the site has been fixed, our device can be removed in as little as 30 seconds from the same port of entry at which it was put in. We've tested this device against industry-recognized simulation models. In these models, our hypothetical patients lost about 1 liter of blood every 60 seconds, meaning that at the 2-minute mark, these hypothetical patients would sadly have bled to death without any intervention. EndoShunt empowered surgeons to gain control of that hemorrhage in as little as 30 seconds. And what's more, they maintain that control for the life of the simulation, meaning that they could stop your hemorrhage in its tracks and keep you alive as they work to fix the injury. I'm here alone this weekend, and that is not by choice. The rest of our organization is in Minneapolis finishing our first in vivo testing model. I was blessed to be there Thursday to watch the first day of trials, flying out later that night to be here. And I'm happy to share with you all today, we have proven effectiveness in both the aorta and the IVC. Our team is a diverse group of experts rooted in a push from Vanderbilt University to pair medical professionals who've identified a problem with the resources capable of providing real-world solutions to it. I was recruited to EndoShunt on March 20th of this very year in an effort to gain the talent they need to get this device to market. I come from nearly a decade of new medical product device development success at AbbVie and Medline Industries, taking these products from cradle to grave. I have a project management professional certification and am graduating with my master's in epidemiology this May. My current co-CEO, future CTO Michael, is an engineering expert. His time at Merge Medical Device ensures that we are developing a product that is fit for function, fit for use, and fit for market. Our CFO, Olivia, provides us with brilliant strategy based on what she's learned in her MBA program at Harvard, as well as at McKinsey & Company. And last, but absolutely not least, we have our two trauma surgeon co-founders, Milad and Jeremy. They help to ensure we have our finger on the pulse of the medical community, developing a product, defining the right user needs, testing it for viability, and ensuring that we adapt to keep up with a healthcare industry that changes as rapidly as we do. There are currently several other devices or processes on the market that attempt to deal with abdominal hemorrhage, but none of them were designed for this. And because of that, all of them fall short. Packing allows for surgeons to place pressure on the site of the wound, but it is extremely invasive and has very limited effectiveness. Aortic cross-clamping, or its less invasive counterpart of balloon occlusion, go upstream of the site of the injury, blocking your blood flow to the rest of your body. That starves your body of oxygen and can lead to complications as serious as amputation or organ failure. EndoShunt is the only solution. It allows for targeted control of your hemorrhage, making sure your blood stays where it should while not leaving where it shouldn't. It can be inserted minimally invasively through both the arterial and venous circulatory system, and it does not impede with the efficacy of repairing the site of the injury. Our intellectual property will set us up to corner the entire market of endovascular shunting as a category. In parallel, we've gained key design protection features that help to ensure our product can be inserted without a guide wire, with versatility to function in a biological system, and with user-friendliness that encourage the surgeons to successfully carry out these in a very hectic environment. Our regulatory path to market is clear and getting clearer every single day. We have benefited from a mentor relationship with the CEO of Pride Time Medical, the owning organization of our intended predicate device. Their device follows a similar path to ours, goes below the heart and spikes blood back to the heart to help resuscitate during failure. What's more, to capitalize on the lessons they learned, we are employing the same regulatory consultants to help us with our 510(k) process so that we can gain the same clearance that they saw success with. We're leveraging their letter of regulatory opinion to develop our to-market plan in a way that mitigates risk, capitalizes on opportunity, and ensures we have the right contingencies in place to be successful in such a difficult pathway. Our pricing is benchmarked against our competition while factoring in the benefits that our product provides that are missing from the market today. With a projected average sales price of $6,000 per unit, we're looking at a gross margin of 84%, competitive with all the other medical device products in this category. The reimbursement codes that we've currently decided to use based on our predicate result in very exciting value analyses for any healthcare system throughout the United States. What's more, these patients are dying. And because of that, these healthcare systems are missing out on the opportunity to provide nearly $350,000 of additional care due to the inability to keep them alive. Our market size is growing. Trauma events have risen by 23%. That's 3 times greater than our population growth rate during that same measurement. We've gained exclusive access to the American College of Surgeons Trauma Quality Improvement Program dataset. That dataset has granular information about every single trauma event in the United States, including what indications were used, how it was reimbursed, and what the outcome associated with those activities were. With that, we've developed a beachhead market of $366 million. This market is an opportunity where surgeons have 2 choices: use EndoShunt or accept that their patient will likely bleed to death. As we start to gain revenue, we'll expand to additional ICD-10 codes and indications of use that grow our market to solid organs and other abdominal circulatory systems, growing our market to $612 million. Once we've captured the US-based market, we will pursue global clearance so we could tap into a $10.5 billion market internationally. Lastly, as we leave avoidable abdominal hemorrhage death in our rear view, we will concentrate on additional medical fields such as OBGYN, transplant surgery, and oncology, all of whom expressed a deep interest in our product's functionality during our market analysis. We intend to capture this market using gold standard techniques that we've identified through our mentors and running industry reviews. We will launch in 5 pilot sites, of which we already have handshaking agreements with in 2025. These are major trauma centers throughout the United States and will help us to grow our clinical study data so we can improve our sales opportunities in the future. The healthcare sales cycle is usually 9 to 12 months, meaning that to successfully capture the market in 2026, we will begin these activities in April of 2025. We will go out and hire or partner with a sales staff that's capable of having the technical conversations necessary to win over trauma surgeons and their value analysis committees. With these assumptions here, we ran a 10,000 run Monte Carlo simulation. And at the end of that simulation, we saw major milestones such as $1 million per month in revenue as early as October of 2026. That same year, despite insurance, manufacturing, employment, travel, and many other considerations, we will break even by 2026. We will start to sell over 100 units per month that following January. Our road to the market is clear, and we've come a long way since our ideation in 2020. Thanks in part to Vanderbilt University, we were able to participate in the NSF I-Core program, where we gained key access to healthcare professionals and validated our market. In 2022, we filed our non-provisional patents and participated in the 0 to 510K accelerator that propelled us forward to where we are today. We've tested our manufactured prototypes against both simulated and in vivo models, and we've been honored to be a part of the M-Hub Accelerator and the Heartland Challenge. Later this year, we will schedule a pre-510K meeting with the FDA, and in doing so, we will gain their stamp of approval on what we intend to test to get to market. Following that, we'll execute those tests in a way that's averse to risk while being cognizant of the time sensitivity related to our product. We'll file for FDA submission in 2024 and schedule a targeted launch in Q4 or Q1 of 2025. We are asking for $1 million at a $4 million pre-money valuation. This money will go directly to supporting the testing that we need to carry out to get our FDA clearance. With the help of you all here today, any prize money that we end up leaving this event with will go directly to finalizing our minimum viable product and our design freeze. In parallel, we will find our strategic manufacturing supply chain partner that doesn't just fit who we are right now, but can grow with us over the next decade as we make an impact around the world. Lastly, remainders will be set aside for our pre-510K submission meeting, making sure that we have the regulatory buy-in on a validated to market plan. It's not every day that your investment dollars, even in the medical device industry, can lead directly to saving a life. But with all of your help, we can make preventable abdominal hemorrhage death a problem of the past by giving trauma surgeons the gift of time that they so desperately need so that they can give trauma patients and their loved ones the gift of life. Please join us.
Can I go first? Just for
Sorry, that was a lot of talking.
So I want to, first of all, congratulations for making it this far.
Thank you.
It's a great story. What is your team doing right now? You said there, can you elaborate? That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah.
How it relates to where your trajectory is and where you're trying to go.
We're carrying out our first in vivo model. So we now have biological evidence that our product works in a living organism in the way that we saw in that simulation data, in both the aorta and the IVC of the porcine model.
So you actually have a prototype built?
Yes, we have fully functioning prototypes that we've tested both in vitro and in vivo.
Okay. And who does the manufacturing for you?
Right now, we're partnering with CatheSure Medical out of Mexico.
Out of Mexico, okay. I'll let everybody else go then.
So, a couple of questions. Great presentation. So, you're in your business plan, you talked about a convertible, but now you're going with equity. That's good because investors like that better than a convertible note. The one graph you showed on the Gutierrez paper.
The simulated data set?
Yeah, okay, so it was a simulated because that
1 second.
The paper was a review.
Sorry. There we go.
So the control came from the review paper, and this is not an actual comparison.
This is unpublished data, top-line data of how our device can work in a simulated model.
Okay.
Referencing a control published in the paper that you're referencing.
And what is your predicate?
Our predicate is the Prytime pre-Revella.
And does it, so also in your business plan, you talked about the surgeon may not be able to get to the vena cava. So what if the bleed is coming from someplace else? They go ahead and put this in, it's not working, so what happens then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the beauty of being able to deploy it in 30 seconds, if you miss the mark, you've got additional chances. So you can resize that to find the isolated area of your injury, whether you're gaining more information from CT scans and actually getting a directed target, or the patient's already open and you're troubleshooting visually and notice that as you begin to reshape where your shunt is, you can occlude the blood flow.
So the shunt can go to different sizes. What is the range?
20 centimeters to 5.
To 5, okay, great. I'll let somebody else talk.
So in the business plan, it talks about the fact that most patients don't make it to the hospital.
Yes.
So you're not actually addressing that. So why not go to EMTs first so that we can actually get people to the hospital and then help them, further survive? Because if they're still if 93% don't make it to the hospital, or 96% don't make it to the hospital?
Depending on the distance.
Yeah, so we're missing the big market because they're dying before they get there. So why the emergency room versus the EMT?
Yeah, I'm very happy you asked that, actually. So the anatomical structure of your abdomen can maintain blood control in most of the injuries that we're talking about here today. And so that clock starts when that individual is opened, and the pressure change now results in your blood flowing continuously out of that injury site. The beauty of expanding internationally is that the United Kingdom has trauma surgeons who ride on their ambulatory care, which, as you mentioned, could increase survivability by potentially upwards of 70%, depending on how far away those individuals live from a healthcare system.
Great.
So we're absolutely factoring that in. Right now, we're concentrating on trauma surgeons based on our path to the FDA, and using the United Kingdom. If we have opportunities to, in the United States, expand to EMTs, that's absolutely within our radar.
A follow-up question. So what are the indications for OBGYN and oncology and the other places that you think it can be used?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't mind, I could start with the transplant surgery. And so realistically, if you're removing a liver or a kidney, with 2 versions of EndoShunt, you can block off the supply in and out of that organ as you remove it and place in what you want, avoiding acidosis or any complications with what you're doing. In OBGYN, hemorrhage is a massive problem. And so this device can help mitigate that problem. And with oncology, you can gain targeted access to where you want your drugs to be flowing.
In your business plan, you put 20 to 40 units per surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
So are these emergency room surgeons?
These are predicted as trauma surgeons. So we have
Trauma
about
surgeons.
4,500 trauma surgeons in the United States across our healthcare systems.
So that seemed like a little low to me.
The use
20
case?
20 units per surgeon. It was over what period of time?
Calendar year.
Yeah, don't we have more people getting shot and stabbed than that?
I'd love to sit up here and tell you that we could solve every indication of use, but I'm sticking to what we can prove through the FDA for now. And if in the future there's other iterations that are smaller in size or can access other vascular areas, we're absolutely open to pursuing those opportunities.
And then I'll just keep going here. Who's the buyer for the product at the hospital?
Absolutely. So the Value Analysis Committee will be the ones who decide whether or not they take this device in. And so what usually happens in addressing these markets is you work with those healthcare systems to find a champion. And that's really what we'll rely on our own 2 surgeons to start with, and eventually our expert sales staff to find. And so as soon as you have buy-in from the people who are going to be executing these surgeries, the conversations with those Value Analysis Committees become substantially easier. Do you mind if I take a sip of water?
Yes. No, please do. So I want to go back to your porcine models that you talked about. what was the effectiveness? You didn't show any data, so I'd like to know how effective it was in the porcine model, and what's the longest length of time that you've tested and it's remained that the blood is not leaking?
Unfortunately, I don't have a final report for you guys. It's still going on. But as when I left Thursday, we were successfully able to prevent hemorrhage in both the aorta and the IVC. And what that means is we went in and made a 1 centimeter incision into both those major blood vessels. We then put our product into that animal, and deployed it. After that, we left it deployed for upwards of 30 minutes to make sure that there was no vascular leakage, showing that over that length of time.
Okay, so the experiment is ongoing as we speak, is what you're saying?
Yes, not the same animal, but the experimentation is ongoing.
But
It started Thursday.
So this is the first time it's been tested in animals?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, my other question is, you mentioned Prytime. How is your device superior to theirs, and what are their sales?
Yeah, absolutely, great question. So what we're looking at with Prytime Medical is they developed a device that's meant to help resuscitate your heart during a heart attack. We just follow a similar pathway through the endovascular structures. And so that's why it's the predicate device that we're using. Their current sales, I believe, are at $40 million a market. And a lot of what we learned about our sales strategy was from their CEO telling us why they failed at launching their product. And so we've taken those lessons learned and made sure that we're mitigating them for ourselves moving forward.
Okay, my last question is about intellectual property. You mentioned that it was guide wire free.
Mm-hmm.
Is that to work around some existing IP, or to get freedom to operate?
That's specifically to increase its user friendliness. And so with that, surgeons don't need to work through putting in that guide wire system and then dealing with our product. It cuts out a step, it makes it easier, and it makes it faster.
Is there any other IP that's blocking for you?
No, sorry, I was trying to get to the slide.
No worries. Okay, thank you.
I think I'm up next. So first of all, thank you for this presentation. Could we go to the first slide real quick?
The title slide?
Yeah, second slide.
Okay.
So just to make sure, to get a point of clarification on, keep going.
We're moving, sorry.
Well, basically the 1.7, to kind of clarify MK's question, on the 1.75 million annual deaths, very serious attention getter, but what's the annual deaths in hospitals that this is relevant to? Is just 5% of that? So the number is really like 75,000?
The number is much smaller than that 1.75 million for just abdominal hemorrhage, yes.
By much smaller, is it like 5%, like the opposite of 93%?
I believe we're looking at somewhere in the order of magnitude of hundreds of thousands.
Okay. So I think like just my feedback to you as an investor, like credibility is absolutely key. And while this is an attention getter, like it's a material difference in terms of how it's presented. Okay, so next question. Just to make sure I understand the logic. Why go internationally before where you have other regulatory issues and distribution issues versus going broader in domestic? You have a couple different in the market, a couple different domestic use cases that would have the same distribution. You just need, I guess, additional regulatory. Why go internationally first?
This is not necessarily a linear process. The major linear process here is between that 366 million and that 612 million. The global regulatory application does take some time. And so if in parallel we can expand to other indications of use in the United States and we have the capital and ability to do so, the black versus red bubbles are not necessarily in series.
Got it. So I think the way I would think about this is to know domestically is the black in the black bubble part what the total domestic market would be across all categories, and then take those all categories and then go internationally, because that would be more linear in my mind in terms of how the information is presented, but I appreciate the answer.
Thank you for that feedback.
The other thing, which is I'm trying to get my arms around, and I also want to make sure I understand, what are I see the terms in here for the investment, but what are the terms of the investment?
Yeah, we threw a curveball. Sorry, everyone. The plan's a little outdated. Since I joined the industry, we're actually reworking our strategy and both funding and our path to market. And so what we're looking for right now is a $1 million investment on a pre-money valuation of $4 million. And that's specifically to account for the fact that we've completed our first in vivo testing successfully, and there are other milestones that, in parallel with how Prytime Medical's predicate moved through and their valuations, we're very much on par with.
Got it, thank you. And then also, for my last question, I might have missed it, and I know there's some information in this executive summary, but I really didn't see like a sales, like the keys, like where is this going to be sales wise, and what are the key assumptions of those sales? I saw like $1 million in 2026, break even in the end of 2026. I saw like beyond that, as I think about investment, like it's hard for me to get my arms around like what is this going to look like, and what are the assumptions for it to look like that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so we wanted to spare you guys from yet another hockey stick style projection of finances. And so we ran that Monte Carlo analysis in parallel with the milestones you're seeing here. Some of the assumptions that go into feeding that is we will, in the first year, leverage 2 professional sales individuals that'll help us capture market share. Growth from there is expected for them to add 1 to 2 hospital systems every month. And in parallel with that, once a quarter, they'll be performing training 2 days that quarter for each of those healthcare systems on their trauma surgeons. As we gain more in revenue or we find more opportunistic partnerships, we want to access more surgical sites by getting more reps out there in the market.
Makes total sense. I would strongly encourage a slide illustrating that so we can see what that means revenue-wise, and then think about how we think about those assumptions in relation to revenue. You also had time at the end, and so I would just include it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you.
How long were you at Medline, and what did you do there?
I was at Medline for 7 years. And when I was there, I started as an individual contributor in R&D, ended up leading their new medical device product development and infection prevention. And before I left, I was also wearing a project management hat to help us all through the reality that was supply chain during COVID.
Oh, I bet. So when I see somebody wanting to partner with expert sales staff, it usually means they've had some bad experience since hiring salespeople. So I was just curious what you were talking about there with partnering with sales staff as a potential avenue versus just hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we are thinking towards is what's our best foot forward as we enter the market while being lean and agile. And so there are groups on the market that leverage some kind of partnership carrying specific portfolios of products to those healthcare systems. We've also seen our predecessor company leverage a sales force that actually uses healthcare professionals themselves in those health systems too. And so we're trying to figure out what's best for us as an organization so that when we hit the market, we're not falling into the same pit holes that group did.
Got it. Thank you.
So you joined the organization in March of this year. Did I hear that
March
properly?
20th.
Yeah,
I think this is my 3rd week, so.
Wow. And you were co-CEOs, but the other person is moving to CTO?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Don't do co-CEOs, right? It just doesn't work.
We want to make sure that transition is seamless.
Yeah,
so.
perfect. So it's just a little odd, I'll say, that you're the most recent member of the leadership team and you're here alone.
Yeah, I understand that.
And you're doing a heck of a job, by the way. For a guy who's been on the job 3 weeks, like, it's really impressive. But I just, like, when you pitch venture capitalists, make sure that there's somebody else in the room, with you.
I appreciate that feedback, and I recognize my strengths. I'm not our trauma surgeons. I'm not our engineer. And so when it came to the in vivo testing, I was arguably the least useful at that event. I'm very happy to be here because I truly have been doing this for a decade with a really successful portfolio and a variety of medical products. And this is what I love to do.
So the team is going to pursue this business, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I shouldn't interpret anything beyond they're just busy testing.
Yes, we're trying to hit this benchmark milestone so that we could finalize our design and move through the FDA process later this year. This was a massive achievement to get an animal model as quickly as 2 years after a prototype.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for handling that.
Absolutely.
Do you have an exit strategy?
Right now, we are running this company as if we will do it for the rest of our lives. So we're in love with the mission. We're here to solve this problem. And I think the saying is companies are bought, not sold. So if things change in the future, that's between us and our board of directors and investors to discuss.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say great presentation. Love the video, the visual to kind of help explain the problem. So thank you.
Absolutely. I didn't make that.
I'll ask one more quick question. I might have missed this, and I'm sorry. How do you know the team, and how did it all come to be in terms of you joining?
I was surprisingly called on a business trip in France at 3 a.m, and I'm very happy I picked up the phone. It was a recruiter that they hired to help find someone who could make them successful in bringing a product to market since they haven't had the experience in doing that in the past. So my hat's off to my co-CEO, Michael, right now, for recognizing his strengths and going out and finding what the organization needs to actually get this product to healthcare.
And what made you someone that was working at a company full time, probably had a guaranteed salary and everything else, decide that this is the best use of your time with all the opportunity costs that you had making that decision? And how long ago was that?
I mean, if I started on the 20th, I made the decision, let's say, on the 11th. No, I'm kidding. Probably the beginning of March, early February is about the time that I made the decision to leave industry and join EndoShunt. And what won me over is after I had those first conversations, out of curiosity and a background of epidemiology, I wanted to dig into it myself and kind of give it the litmus test from my own eyes. And so I ran some models, and a lot of what they said was unfortunately true. And I just fell in love with what they were trying to solve. And with that, I'm very happy to be a part of this organization. I'm hopeful that we can get it to market in a way that makes sense and that keeps our patients alive in the future.
Anybody else?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell that CFO to work on those financials, though.
I think we're all good. I think you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well done. Okay, we are going to take just a quick 5-minute break now, so don't go far.
Just want something more than this. I wanna see beaches. Follow the tide. Is this bride really mine?
Look, you feel like a vacation to me. So you just got time for yourself. I was selfishly hoping it's something you were saving for me. I wasn't waiting on you, but what should I saw chances you wouldn't be waiting for me. Heaven and hell only knows where I'd be if my granny and papa wasn't praying for me. But now I'm here, I see my past crystal clear. I should see my future because it's near, but I don't. At least not like I want. A new sensitivity comes when I'm wrong. Suppose that subliminally means that I'm grown. Used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm gone. But not no more. I used to feel a piece of discomfort, then I'm grown. And talk about the destructive cycles in my songs.
Is to feel the breeze. I wanna see beaches.
climate change is happening now. Are projected to rise by
You said one day isn't this what you seek? Look at where you are. Look at where you are. Standing stoic in a field of rolling green. Look at where you are. Look at where you are. When the colder winter wilts the autumn leaves, and the sand of time smother your tender gleam, will the flowers that we planted ever bloom, or will the fruit we bear rot away with spring? One day when the sun is gone, who's gonna know us at all? Who is gonna know us at all? One day when the sky is gone, who's gonna know us at all? Who's gonna know us at all? You said yesterday our earnest work was done, but yesterday is gone. Look at who we are. Blood on our hands, the river water's drawn. Our guilt is gone. Look at who we are. When the cold of winter wilts the autumn leaves, and the sands of time smother your callow gleam, will the flowers that we planted ever bloom, or will the fruit we bear rot away with spring? One day when the sun is gone, who's gonna know us at all? Who's gonna know us at all? One day when the sky is gone, who's gonna know us at all? 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 Who's gonna know us at all?
All right, I think we have everybody back. I'm excited, last and definitely not least. I'm excited to welcome to the stage Atomics from Brown University. Coming up, guys.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Dana Beakley-Spezial, co-founder and CEO of Atomics.
Hi, I am Selahattin Gumus, co-founder and CTO of Atomics.
Atomics is revolutionizing the way we store and process digital data by using small molecules. Now you may be wondering, why would anyone want to store data in small molecules? So let's first take a second to talk about the problem, which is the modern data center. This is where the internet lives. In these massive warehouses that are lined floor to ceiling with computers and hard drives and solid-state drives, this is what we're talking about when we talk about a data center. And right now, these data centers are struggling to keep up with our explosive data creation and processing needs. What we're looking at here is data creation in zettabytes, where 1 zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes of information. And if we take a look at where we are on this curve in 2023, and we look ahead, We see this massive increase in data creation that's expected within the next decade. And now if we take a look at the limits of conventional technology, we've already surpassed the limits. In fact, we can only store about 15% of the entire digital universe today. But why is this happening? Well, most of our data is stored using transistors. And to make these transistors, we need chip-grade silicon. One huge problem is that prior to 2040, the demand will be nearly 100 times the world's supply of the silicon. We simply will not have enough silicon to store our information. Another problem is that transistors have already reached their size minimum on the nanometer scale. And at this size, you can fit billions of transistors onto a single microchip. But at this size, they also produce enormous amounts of heat. In fact, to keep our data cool, data centers are using more electricity per year than the entire country of Austria. And just one of Google's data centers in Texas uses more than 1 billion gallons of water in addition to the electricity to keep our data cool. There are some serious problems with how we store and process data. And what we need is nothing short of a paradigm shift in approach to solve these problems. And that's where atomics comes in. We can store data denser, more securely, more durably, and more sustainably than our conventional and current DNA-based competitors.
Atomics created non-DNA molecular data storage, and we are at the forefront of this innovation space. We have published our work in many high-respected, high-impacted journals, including Nature and others, and we have shown that we can store digital information in small molecules, and we can do basic computations with them. So we have a short video for you. I hope you enjoy it. It will explain how our technology works. I hope you all enjoyed the video and very calming music came with it. So just quickly recap what we saw on the video. Our patented technology starts with some sort of information, like images, audio, text. Then we convert that into binary, just a bunch of ones and zeros the computers understand as image or as data. Then using our novel algorithm, we translate that into these bits into presence or the absence of unique molecules in the solution. To read out the information, we use chemical analysis technique. From here, we use artificial intelligence to read the spectra we obtain and recover our data. Our method works very well, and we demonstrated that we can recover 100% of our data. To further visualize how revolutionary our technology is, storing information in small molecules can offer up to 8 orders of magnitude greater density than conventional technology. So just keep up with me. This is New York. We're going to go to New York. We have 150 Empire State Building worth of 1 terabyte hard drives. We can take that and condense into the size of this beautifully designed coffee cup. Additionally, Storing information in small molecules opens up to great opportunities in computing and data security. We have already made progress on molecular computing, where we've shown that chemistry naturally can performs operations like multiply, accumulate, or thresholding. These operations are the basis of neural networks used in current machine learning algorithms. Molecular computing offers high parallelizability as well as greater energy efficiency. And comparing to the alternative computing techniques, we offer a wide range of applications because they are limited to single operation. In terms of data security, storing information in small molecules opens door to the steganography, molecular encryption keys, self-expiring messages. Now we are talking about James Bond technologies here. And also single read data. You can read the data one time and one time only. We have shown that we can hide information onto common objects like dollar bill here using the molecules already present on the surface of that object. Unless you know the object, the molecules we used, the locations of those molecules, and have a chemical analysis technique and an algorithm to put all of the pieces together, it's virtually impossible to hack that information. So, data storage market is competitive, as we all know. What we are seeing here is the market landscape, divided into two important parameters, cost and density. When we move up, we achieve affordable solutions. When we move to the side, we achieve higher density solutions. Higher density means we can store more information in smaller spaces. On the upper left, we have conventional technology providers that consist of several large companies that are currently offering affordable solutions to their customers. However, their ability to continue provide solutions that can keep up with the rate of data creation is coming to a screeching halt because their technology has already reached its physical size limits. In other terms, they cannot make smaller materials. What's smaller than nanometers is molecules. In the molecular storage, data storage space, the main competitors use DNA to store information. However, despite a decade of trying to commercialize DNA storage, it still costs, okay, I'm going to tell you the numbers, drop the coffee now. It costs tens of millions of dollars to store 1 terabyte of information into DNA. And their density, they are limited to 2 bits of information per molecules. So it means that alternative molecular data storage technologies have a huge opportunity to be denser and cheaper than DNA.
The Atomics technology is dual use, and our first markets are in data security and archival data storage, where on the data storage side, we'll sell the writing equipment and the chemical libraries that are necessary to store information in small molecules. And we'll sell this to data centers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. On the data security side, we'll sell molecular encryption keys, perform materials authentication, and provide the equipment for lightweight and secure offline data storage. We've already been in touch with Amazon and Microsoft, as well as the CIA, the Department of Defense, and the Library of Congress, and they're all interested in using our technology in the coming years. And the data storage market alone is massive and growing quickly. And this demand, coupled with the imminent challenges that the industry is facing, has led to more than $3.5 billion in investment into next-generation data storage development. The Atomics founding team currently consists of myself and Salahuddin, and we're both PhD candidates in chemistry at Brown University, as well as Brenda Rubenstein and Jacob Rosenstein, who are professors in chemistry and engineering at Brown. And in addition to our technical backgrounds, Salahuddin is also pursuing his master's in innovation management and entrepreneurship at Brown, and Jacob has founded 2 other companies that have come out of university technology. We've also brought in 4 part-time employees that have worked to develop both the product and the business side of the company. The research and development to date that's been done at the university has been funded by the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, known as DARPA, as well as the National Science Foundation. We've patented our entire technology, we have 2 issued patents, and we've recently submitted a 3rd patent application. We'll be licensing this IP with exclusivity and broad use from the university. And while we are in the very early stages, we've already received a ton of really exciting traction. We've won more than $60,000 in non-dilutive funding so far, And just a few weeks ago, we were recognized as one of the top 7 companies out of more than 4,000 applications worldwide in the Hello Tomorrow Global Summit. And we got to go to Paris a few weeks ago to pitch as one of the top 1.7% of deep tech startups in the entire world. We'll be raising our seed round of financing this summer, and the money will go towards research and development and to expand our team and also acquire our first customer. And that first customer is going to be in the data security space and will sell molecular encryption keys and perform materials authentication. And as we continue to scale our technology to accommodate larger volumes of data, we also unlock significantly larger markets. So we're starting off in a $2.5 billion market with molecular encryption and authentication, followed by lightweight and secure offline data storage, and finally, the big enterprise data storage market. And when we're at scale, we could take the entire digital universe that currently occupies thousands of acres of land worldwide and condense that into the size of this room. And so I'll leave you all with this. Silicon Valley has become a household name, and its name came from all of the silicon that's used to make the transistors that power our technology world. But the fact is, we are running out of silicon. And if you accept that technology will continue to improve despite this, then it becomes easy to also accept that the future is not silicon. It's atomic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, you're going to lead us in this. This is your area.
Okay, so
So great presentation, thank you. I have a bunch of different questions. So where are you in the product development cycle? So I kind of want to go through the whole life cycle. So I want to know where you are. I want to understand the read-write times. I come from this space, so I'll dig deep till my team tells me not to. So I'd like to know kind of where are you in the product, and then how much have you been able to understand the read speeds, the write speeds? Are we going offline storage first? So just kind of, if you could dig into that with me, please, that would help.
Absolutely. Yes, so currently we have shown that we can do this process. So we've done this, we've written information into molecules, we've recovered information from those molecules, and we can do that with 100% recovery rates. And so we've done this process. This process does work, and we've done that on a lab scale prototype. As we scale up, yes,
Before you go there.
Yep.
So you've done it at what size?
Oh, right. So we're able to store megabytes of information today in a lab scale setting.
Okay. And then what are the devices that you're using? Because they're not the devices that are in the computing center today, right? It's brand new devices for being able to store and then read.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. So on the writing side of information, what we've used so far has been what's called an echo-acoustic liquid handling device. It's used in the pharmaceutical industry a lot. And basically what it's able to do is deposit very tiny droplets that you saw on the plate of chemicals very quickly. And so we can write information on the order of minutes, so to answer that part of the question. And then on the readout side, we're using mass spectrometry right now. And we can recover that information on our scale at the same speed as archival data today. So we are on the order of archival data storage, which will be the first market that we go into.
So the first market is archival
on the data
security.
Storage side. So on the data storage side, it's archival.
Yeah.
Even before that, we can go into data security markets. So things like molecular encryption, that's what we can do at a megabyte scale, for example.
Okay, thanks.
What's the speed of data archival that you're saying you can compete with?
Yes, so currently today, it can take up to 24 hours to recover your information from magnetic tape. We can do megabytes of information in just a few hours. So we're well within that 24-hour time frame.
Okay. On your tech, I have a question. So in the business plan, and I think in your presentation, you talked about AI and leveraging machine learning. Can you tell me where exactly you're using that in your process?
So when we store information, when you remember there's a plate with a bunch of dots on it, those are the molecules, and each dot contains several molecules in it. So we use some of them to train our systems to look for other spots and figure out what molecules in those spots. So machine learning currently used that way. Molecular computing side, if you're mentioning about, we published 2 papers, one of them using the autocatalysis, which is, let's say, molecule A reacting with molecule B, producing molecule C. That molecule C comes back to the reaction and just infinite circle producing more molecule C. And when we think about molecular computing, molecule A or molecule B acts like an input, and we will produce some molecule C and output, and we can understand what's going on in the system, and we can learn from that.
How many unique molecules do you have to have per data volume?
That's a great question. So it depends is the answer. So it depends on the spot size, and it depends on how much information that we need to write. So for example, on the megabyte scale, so far we've used around 500 compounds. We don't have to use that many, but it made our lives easier with the equipment that we were using to date. But the great thing about our system is that we aren't limited to a certain type of molecule like DNA is, for example. We can use any type of molecule. And so when you look at the entirety of the chemical space, there are trillions and trillions and trillions of options of molecules to choose from.
And do you make your own molecules or just buy it?
We could do either. It's a lot faster to just buy them off the shelf and directly use them. A bit cheaper to make them ourselves in-house, but going forward, we have some IP in the works that's actually going to allow us to use, we aren't talking about it broadly because we haven't filed the provisional, but basically we can use byproducts, so to speak, of industry and research environments in order to store data so that it ends up being scalable both in a sustainability standpoint but also in a cost efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, I noticed in your business plan you said you could use waste chemicals. So how do you handle, for example, a toxic molecule? Do you screen for them and they're not in this system? And do I have to buy a mass spec for my office if I want to store stuff locally?
Right, so to the first question about toxicity, we can store information in anything, so we can certainly store it in toxic chemicals. And one of the great things about actually doing that is that it's kept away from people who are going to be interacting with this. So we can do things. There are companies that are isolating toxic chemicals from waste streams and things like that. We can take that and we can store information. And what we can also do, because mass spec is a destructive readout technique, and some chemical analysis techniques are, others aren't, but with mass spec, what we can do is actually break that toxic chemical down into things that are less toxic by ionizing it. And so we can take things from the environment that are pollutants and that are known toxicants, and we can actually convert that, use it to store data, add value, and then convert that into something in the end that's not toxic anymore.
I have one more question. So a lot of molecules are not stable under heat or some other conditions, or maybe not soluble. So how do you handle those?
Yes, so what we need is for them to be soluble in some solvent. We don't care about the solvent, but it has to be soluble in something so that we can dispense the liquids. And you bring up a really good point about stability. So on the archival data storage side, stability is really important. We need to keep that data for as long as we can. And there are molecules that exist that can last for decades or hundreds of years, or even beyond. On the flip side, there are molecules that can only last for a week or a month. And that's something that the data security people are really interested in particular the CIA, because what we can actually do is create self-expiring messages. And so we can write information onto some object, they can ship it off somewhere, and they don't have to worry about if it gets into the wrong hands, because it's going to degrade on its own in however long we decide that it will degrade. So we can modulate the stability of our data, and that's something that's also great that DNA just can't do.
So just so this is like way over my head, so this is kind of cool, but if I'm assuming you're wanting to do it from waste because that's to be competitive against existing chips, Silicon Valley. I mean, you need to be able. I mean, right now, what's the cost if you buy the molecules and develop the wafer or whatever you want to call it, and then now you're competing against Intel? I mean, tell me what the difference is economically there, just so I kind of have an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we're still much more expensive than, for example, a semiconductor chip.
To what level? Like
we're about
100 times?
We're about 1,000 times more expensive on a bit per bit basis.
Okay.
But what we like to remind ourselves of is that when the first solid-state drive was invented, it cost $50 per megabyte of information.
Moore's Law.
Exactly. And again, that waste is going to allow us to continue to scale in the same way that solid-state drives and others have scaled.
So driving it down, being able to use toxic molecules people are sending you for free to figure out how you get there. And at that level, what are we talking about? What level above a Silicon Valley chip are we talking about if you really got it to scale?
Yeah, that's on par with the conventional technology at that scale. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
One question, you talked about how you were able to recover the data once it's encoded and recovered. And so you saw no data degradation, 100% accuracy, even in the JPEGs images and all of that?
That is correct. The plate you saw on the video has been written like 100,000 times.
Okay.
We just keep showing people because people are really interested. They want to see how technology works. We invite them to the lab. We use the same plate, read the same information, and 100% accuracy.
But if you're using a machine learning model up front and then later downwards, there's always some precision, some recall, some error that's involved in those machine learning models. So how are you accounting for that?
So there are current methods to account those. For example, for the DNA, they are using error correction, and we are using error correction in the conventional technology too. We can use that to further make sure that our accuracy is still 100%.
Okay. I just feel like sometimes your size, your training set is too small, because of which you are seeing really high numbers, but when you start testing it at scale, you'll start seeing higher error percentages.
That's correct. Another way to eliminate that kind of error, we can have a training set with several plates using the several compounds and just using the test set from those compounds, but still have the accuracy preserved. Yeah.
And we do use error correction today. So we can use these. We've shown that we can use these and implement this with molecular data storage as well to get 100% recovery every time.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about, is there an algorithm that helps you decide which chemicals for which purpose? And is that part of your revenue model? Like, I don't know how you're making money. Can you just elaborate a little bit on your business model? And how does the selection of different chemicals come into play?
Of course, yes. So for the business model question, in the archival data space, you can think of it like a printer and ink model or a razors and blades model, right? So what we're going to be doing is selling the writing equipment, and that is going to be the one-time purchase. So it's analogous to the office printer. And they'll be selling multiple of those to each facility, just like an office printer. You'll have them, many of them in one location. And then as we have the ink, the chemical libraries that directly interface with that piece of writing equipment. The chemical libraries are like the ink, so they will scale with data creation. As you need to store more data, you need to purchase more chemical libraries. So that's going to be the consumable, and that's where the source of recurring revenue will come from. Does that answer your questions?
But you're using like 5,000 different chemicals. So is every customer buying all of them, or how does that work?
Yeah, so what's really also great about what we're doing is that for each customer, we can provide different molecules so that there's a level of security between our customers. So for example, customer A uses this set of molecules. Customer B uses this set. That means that customer B could never access customer A's information.
But what if you want to share the information?
Well, you certainly could. So the algorithm is what pieces everything together. So the algorithm could be shared if you wanted to, but from a data security standpoint, we can provide that extra layer if necessary.
Thank you.
Of course.
The IP is currently owned by the university, is
That's
that
right.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're in negotiations with the university
Yes.
on a global perpetual license?
Yes, that's exactly right. We're going through a negotiation right now, almost as we speak. So we will be exclusively licensing all of the intellectual property and with broad use. And that will be for the duration of the patent, which is about 20 years right now.
And how is this IP categorized?
In terms of?
For a patent application, is it in the domain of storage? Is it in, like, how is the patent? Give me the big bubble for the patent and kind of the category that you're going after with the provisional patent?
Sure. So we have 2 patents so far. So we have one for data storage and we have one for molecular computing. And both of those are all-encompassing of our technology and our process. And it actually is really great because it covers the methods in addition to product claims. So we've actually already been able to block a company trying to form out of Harvard because they weren't able to secure the IP that they needed to secure. Our patents are really rock solid. And then the third one that we just filed the provisional on is on this data security, steganography, molecular encryption key applications.
And are we covering the surface that we're storing on? So the surface and then the molecular library, are they covered in the patent?
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So first of all, I learned quite a bit in this presentation, so thank you for it.
Of course.
It's funny, you answered many of my questions have been answered both by yourselves as well as my colleagues. A couple of things. I want to make sure I understand at scale. I understand like the impact in terms of environmental, space, electricity, water, everything. I'm trying to understand margin at scale, like unit economics for a model, like a unit economic model. What will, if they're using, aside from all the ancillary benefits, if you're on price parity with the solutions today, what margin do you think you can get to?
Right, yeah, so margins are things that we're far away from today, and so we're still developing and trying to figure out exactly what that margin will be at scale, which is about 7 years in the future, for the archival data storage market. But we do believe that we'll have margins similar to the technologies that are out there because we're selling in a similar way and our costs will be similar at that time.
And what are the factors that lead you to the conclusion of your costs being, like what are the assumptions you're making that will get your costs similar?
Yes, so the assumptions we're making are that we will be using waste molecules or very cheap off-the-shelf molecules, and that we can store information at a great enough density that we're using as many bits of information per molecule, which is something that we've shown that we can do. And so that allows us to get to basically using a pretty small amount of chemicals in order to store a very large amount of data. So that is the assumption we're making, that we can use small amounts of raw materials to store large volumes of data, which allows us to be in cost parity with current technology.
Thank you. This is a very specific kind of company that needs a very specific kind of investor, someone with very specific kind of expertise. I don't know if it's chemical or data or AI. Have you spoken to investors in that market? And so what's the general feedback from the market?
Yes, yeah. So we've spoken to about 50 investors so far, and they're all super excited about what we're doing. So we're in the Northeast area where deep tech is thriving and it's exciting, and everybody is throwing a lot of money behind DNA data storage. We're the only company, the first company, and we will be the only company because of our IP in non-DNA storage. So everybody's really excited about what we're doing. And we actually we're raising in the summer. We started talking to investors last year, and we've had people reaching out almost daily to try and get in on the deal. So we're just waiting because we're graduating from the PhD program in the summer.
So that brings me to, how do you, as a company in that position, interested in a $50,000 grant in a competition like this? Like some of these competitions you're in, is that the best use of your time, given that there is so much demand from the industry already?
Sure, yeah, great question. So we love to pitch, we love to get feedback, and we love to meet and connect with as many people as we possibly can as we go forward. So the investors that we're interested in going into partnerships with over the course of the next several years, they're great. They know a lot of people. They certainly don't know everyone. So we love to get out in front of new people, meet new people, and do things like this.
And we love non-dilutive money. That's very important.
Michael's not a spokesman for the Heartland Challenge, in case you
I just want to understand, but I'm happy you're here. My last question is funny. I was like writing down questions, like I was writing, did you do customer discovery? And then the next slide was, and then I wrote down, does someone have a business background? And then the entrepreneurship and finance. But I will say, one thought would be in terms of as you're compiling your team, and it does sound like some people are focusing on business. When I looked at your model, it looks like you're recognizing investment as income. That's where I was going. Paying taxes on your investment, which me as an investor is not how I'd want that to be done. And so I do want to say, for a very technical team, and even if you are adding folks with finance, I do think it might be helpful for you guys going forward before you run around to get a real finance person, at least as a consultant, to help you. How your information is presented to these institutions could significantly impact the valuation in this. They treat you like a pre-seed or a seed, and how they price your company.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for that feedback. And we noticed that mistake after we submitted the business plan to you all, so I apologize for that. But Victoria Chen, she's our Harvard business student that has been working part-time with us, and we're really excited and interested in her as a full-time hire as we spin out. But we're also interviewing others from MBA, from Sloan MBA at MIT, and other Harvard business students as well that have a lot of experience in the technology space already in industry, and who have experience working with people that we want to sell to. So we're pretty excited to bring on certainly more business expertise.
So Michael said what I was going to say. It looks more like a cash flow statement, and you just get you don't even need a Harvard person to do that. You can just get a bookkeeper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot cheaper.
Sure.
So Intel can't get into molecular computing, is what you're telling me?
Intel could get into molecular computing if they wanted to, but they could not do what we're doing because of our patents, right? So they could try and come up with some other way.
They could
of
work
doing it.
around. Surely, like, you can't have every molecule under patent.
We do. So we.
That's a mic drop.
Yeah. Yes, we do. So we've patented the method. The encoding scheme is really our bread and butter, and that's what keeps companies, even the companies that have lots and lots of capital, from doing what we do. So if you're encoding information in small molecules in the presence or absence of small molecules, you're infringing on our IP.
So what is the silicon chip better at than your molecular chip? What is it? Video? Is it nothing or something?
Currently, the silicon chip is better at ready-to-access data. So it's better at quick recovery of information. So that's why our first markets are in archival data storage, which is data that doesn't need to be stored for very long, or needs to be stored for very long, doesn't need to be recovered very frequently. And that's actually 60% of all data today, and it's the fastest growing class of data. So it's going to be about 80% of all data by 2025.
You talked about the size of the nanos and going down to 5 and all, but I was looking up, and there's actually 2 nanometers and all that right now, and it's coming out this year as well. So I think there's still continuing to be improvements. I feel like it'll eat into some of the market that you're trying to access.
So when you start to think about the nanometer scale, yes, there's something in development on a 2 or 3 nanometer size scale, but molecules are on the angstrom scale.
Yeah.
And so we still have 8 orders of magnitude. That's 100 million times greater density that we can offer over transistors. And transistors, they can continue to eke out a couple of nanometers over time, but at some point, they become just a molecule, because that's the only thing that's smaller. And so we've just taken out that process, and we've said, let's just cut to the chase. Let's get to the smallest things that we can store information in, and let's do that now.
Maybe the last question. Tell us about your financing round this summer. What does it look like?
Yes, so we'll be raising $4 million in equity funding from venture capital, and that will be going towards further research and development to scale our technology to accommodate larger data sets, and also hiring more team members, so on the product and the business side, and then acquiring our first customer in the data storage space.
And what's your expectations on pre-money valuations?
We aren't widely discussing pre-money valuation, but happy to talk individually about that with you afterwards.
Good answer.
And you have the DOD in your 10 million in revenues coming up here. I mean, is that like already whispered? Is there like some kind of memorandum of understanding or anything around
yes.
that?
So DARPA that's our roots of funding to date. And so for those of you who don't know what DARPA is, it's kind of like they're in the defense sector, they're a part of the Department of Defense, and they only fund the most high risk but high reward technology concepts that are available to the United States for military purposes. So we do have that Department of Defense lineage, and the Department of Defense continues to be extremely excited about what we're doing from a national security standpoint. The intelligence community is also starting to get involved in molecular data storage. So unofficially, yes, they remain very interested in what we're doing.
So on that high note, we're going to wrap up. So thank you very, very much. Good job.
Thank you.
Woo! All right, let's get a round of applause for 4 incredible teams and incredible judges. Great discussion. Our goal today was to blow your mind. I hope we have achieved it. Thank you, Atomics. All right, that wraps up our final round. We have a few announcements before we let you go. I want to reflect just for one moment on something that is probably my favorite thing that I've heard someone say about entrepreneurship, and it was actually a physician from Harvard who never had started a company. But he came here, gave a talk about global health, and he said something to the effect of, most problems, most people accept. And Entrepreneurship 101 is deciding you don't want to do that. And I love that, and I felt that so deeply today in this room. So thank you all. It's been fantastic, and I'm going to hand it over to my brilliant, wonderful colleague, Deb Williams, to tell us next steps.
Yes, thank you guys. Congratulations, everyone. You did a great job. It's really, really wonderful. One more round of applause for our teams today. Okay, our Startup Expo is going to be the next thing that happens today. So that's going to be happening right outside of this room. So between now and about 5:30, 5:45, we're going to have to reset this space and reset the Startup Expo space. So if you can go over to the patio, hopefully it's not still hailing, and hang out there. We have some snacks and a refreshment area. So you can hang out in the building. You can explore this building. It's incredible. It opened last fall. And so if you haven't been around the space, you're more than welcome to go and do that. And then please join us back up here for Startup Expo at 5:30, 5:45-ish. Okay, thank you all for being here today. We're so happy to have you.